this script were a person, I would punch it in the face, because it is so annoying. Alright everyone, hello and welcome to episode 10, I believe, of the Screenplay Archaeology podcast. I'm your host, KiramidHead.
And I am Deusdaecon of Deusdaecon Reviews.
And
back again.
Yep, back again, and we're discussing sort of an early drafts thing. I haven't done too many of those, but it really is an unproduced screenplay episode of Freddy vs. Jason, the long gestating project starting from really the late 80s, which didn't have a movie come out until 2003. And they went through, believe it or not, 17 different scripts before they settled on one. And we're only going to be discussing 4.
Yes.
4, because I found the 5th, but after I read those first 4, I was just so annoyed and pissed I didn't want to read the 5th one. And
plus there's like 15 altogether, isn't it? Something like that?
There's like 17 altogether, but only 4 or 5 are actually on the internet.
Yeah.
Plus the final one, I think, is out there as well. But, so there's that, and the basic setup for Freddy vs. Jason is saying this should be really simple. You get Freddy killing people in their dreams, you get Jason killing people while they're awake, and then eventually they fight for whatever reason. And that's essentially what these scripts are. Only, for the most part, only they go absolutely nuts with it. Now, to start out with, I guess we should talk about the different franchises.
Yeah. Well, you know about Friday the 13th, and I know about Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, I know both of them pretty well. So
okay.
I'll cover Friday the 13th quickly, because if I try and talk about all of them in detail, we'll be here for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
But, okay, the way I feel about that series is the first one I think is a pretty damn good slasher movie. It's underrated in a way, because no one ever really seems to give it any sort of credit. Two I think is kind of fun. You know, it does retcon the fact that Jason didn't actually drown as a kid, which I will get back to multiple times over the course of this episode. And I do really like Baghead Jason. And because that was like the first time I saw that, I was like, oh, he doesn't have his hockey mask in his first appearance. That's weird.
Yeah.
And then, of course, part 3 is the one in 3D, which it's actually a pretty fun movie. 4 is really good. It's got Corey Feldman in it. Even though they called it the final chapter, but it wasn't the final chapter.
Not even
Part
close.
5 is decent enough, I feel. It's the one that notoriously doesn't have Jason in it. It's just the paramedic.
Oh, yes. I have seen some bits of that,
It doesn't really make any sense when you get to it at the end, because he does like all this superhuman Jason-y stuff throughout it. But it is a fun movie to watch. And part 6 is really good as well. That's the one where it's more of a comedy. But the comedy actually works, and Jason is a badass. And that's the third one that has Tommy Jarvis in it. And he's played by a different actor in all 3. In the first one, in 4, it's Corey Feldman. In 3, it's John Shepard, I think his name is. And in 6, it's Tom Matthews from Return of the Living Dead. Yeah, that one's actually pretty fun. And after that's where it starts going downhill for me, because part 7 is where Jason fights the psychic. And that was originally going to be Freddy vs. Jason, but Paramount and New Line couldn't come to an agreement, because apparently what Paramount wanted to do is that they wanted to get domestic distribution and just give international to New Line, and New Line knew that was a crappy deal.
Yeah, it's all corporate nonsense, really.
That's the first one where Kane Hodder plays Jason, and it's his best performance as Jason, because he brings a lot of intimidation to it. But it's the only one where he really gets to do much of anything as Jason and be really distinct.
Yeah, it's hard to make Jason actually stand out, because he doesn't say anything, and he doesn't really do anything apart from kill people in creative ways. So it must be a pretty difficult job for any actor.
I mean, he gives it a real physical presence of like Jason, like you can see him just breathing heavily and stuff. It's a good performance. But the movie is just, the characters are really cookie cutter. The psychic thing is just silly. And you have like one of the characters is like this evil doctor who wants to take advantage of her powers, who's Bernie from Weekend at Bernie's. And the kills were all like ridiculously censored by the MPAA, so and the footage has been lost. But the fight at the end is actually really cool because she kicks his ass. Like Jason, it's basically just Jason getting the shit beat out of him with psychic powers for like the last 10 minutes of the movie. It's amazing. So like it's a kind of movie. Jason Takes Manhattan, or as it should be called, Jason Takes Vancouver. That movie's not very good at all, and that's where they kind of start going back to saying, oh, he really did drown as a kid. No, he didn't.
Yeah, that's one thing I remember
and
from that
one
film,
it's not very good. Like, 2/3 of it are set on a boat. And then the last third of it in New York isn't too bad. Like, the only thing I really like in that movie is when he punches the guy's head off.
Right, yeah.
And then Jason Goes to Hell was the next one, which this is where New Line got the rights to use Jason. And this is the really, really weird one, where it barely has Jason in it. And it turns out that Jason is actually Jason's heart, which is a demon. And he goes body swaps. And then...
Yeah, he possesses people throughout the film, doesn't he?
And then, it's not that bad of a horror movie, really. It's just a really odd Jason movie.
Yeah, isn't that the one with the Necronomicon
they go
as well?
to the old Voorhees place, which for some reason is a mansion. And it's got, like, in the basement, it's like they find, like, the Necronomicon and the dagger from Evil Dead.
Yeah, and they are the exact identical things as well. There's
they
no
were
mistaking
the same props. That was intentional. Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, Jason... It's a decent movie. Jason gets killed at the end. And then he gets dragged down to hell, and then his mask is left, and then Freddy's glove comes out and drags the mask down. And the hand was actually Kane Hodder's hand. So technically he's played both Jason and Freddy.
That's quite a credit he's got.
After that point was when they really started trying to work on Freddy vs. Jason, but it didn't happen. And then Freddy vs. Jason came out, which we'll talk about in a minute. But before that was Jason X, which I find to just be a really unfunny comedy, which it's funny for about 20 minutes, and then it just stops being funny, and I don't give a shit anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the few I haven't actually seen it, but I've seen enough of it to know what happens. You know, and I know all the different kills and all the different standout moments, and it's really dull. It's just badly shot. It looks like a sci-fi movie, as in Sci-Fi Channel. You know, it's just bad.
Yes, it is. It looks like a TV show. And then Freddy after Freddy vs. Jason, things kind of went to limbo for a while, and they made the remake under Platinum Dunes, which the guy playing Jason in that, Derek Mears, does a really good job, and the guy from Supernatural is okay in it. And Killer Frost from The Flash is alright in it as well, but then you just have like every other human character in the movie is supremely annoying. Yes.
Yeah, that's kind of the cliche thing to do, really. Yeah,
that's what they do all the time now, but every character in that movie is obnoxious. And apparently it's in the same universe as the Transformers movies, because one of the actors from that is playing he plays a character called Trent in both that and the first Transformers movie.
Okay.
And for a while it went through a phase where they wanted to make a sequel to it because it did really well, but apparently the rights issues were really weird because Paramount owned the Friday the 13th name still, and New Line owned the Jason character, and the fact that they even came to a deal to do that one remake was a miracle, and so it went into limbo for a while, and then eventually Paramount got the rights back from Warner Brothers in exchange for something to do with Interstellar's distribution. And now they're working on one, which it just got delayed, so who knows if it's even happening.
And now we got the game.
Oh yeah, that looks really, really good. I contributed to that Kickstarter.
Yeah, it looks interesting at least.
So yeah, that should be worth.
So maybe he'll live on in video game form.
Hopefully in a good way, not like Mad Max or Rambo.
Yeah.
But true. Yes, there's that, and honestly, it was two of the directors from VHS doing it, so I don't know if it's going to be any good or not. I don't even know if it's going to happen, but it's not in the way, like, it's not in the probably not going to happen way that Halloween Returns is in right now, where...
Yeah. All I can imagine is that the sequel is going to get bogged down for years and years, and then it's going to change into Jason versus Megatron.
Oh, I don't think Platinum Dunes has the rights anymore.
Oh, good. Because if it's in the same universe, they would at least think about it. Well, no, it's because
Platinum Dunes, they apparently don't like making sequels. That's Friday the 13th. Let's go into Elm Street.
Yes,
that is actually my favorite of the slasher series.
Yeah, it's. I would probably say it is me too, actually, because it's the one that I've got just a bit more investment in the plot wise. Mm-hmm. I just find it more appealing story wise because there's not much story in Friday the 13th. Let's be honest. There's
Friday the 13th. A little bit, but not a lot. And it really got worse when they tried to add story to it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you look at the first Nightmare on Elm Street compared to the first Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street has a hell of a lot more plot than Friday the 13th does. And that's not to say it's bad. I'm not saying it's bad in any way. I'm just saying that's just the way they're made. So I think I'm much more of a plot person, really.
Mm-hmm. And Nightmare on Elm Street does have, a very interesting plot, and it was a very creative movie, too, which is one of the reasons why I like watching them, is even the bad sequels have at least an ounce of creativity to them.
Yeah, exactly, and they do put in effort when it comes to effects as well.
Like, the first one is definitely a classic.
Oh, yeah, I would definitely say the first one is one of the better slasher movies out there.
Yeah, it's one of Wes Craven's really, really good movies before he kind of... Wes Craven, may he rest in peace, he did a lot of good movies, but he did a lot of shit ones as well.
It's true. I mean, he did Wishmaster, which I still think is
fantastic.
He
just produced it.
Yeah, but...
That was that period in the 90s when he was, because of the success of Scream, he could just slap his name on the movie as producer and it would sell.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think he did a good job with picking Wishmaster.
Was better than it had any right to be, really.
Oh yeah, especially because it had all slasher movie actors in it.
Sure.
It had Kane Hodder, it had Robert Englund, it had Tony Todd. I mean, Jesus.
Well, I wouldn't call Candyman a slasher, but
really, I would. I kind of call it slasher.
Well, it was a different kind of slasher film then, but to get back to Elm Street, Elm Street 2, I think it's one of the most underrated ones. Because it's not terrible.
That was a massive departure. I mean, it took a much more psychological style, really. And, I mean, that's the only one I haven't seen.
Honestly, that one's actually pretty good, I think. The lead guy in it does a good job with his role of just this guy who's getting torn apart by this thing inside him. And it is probably one of the most homoerotic movies to come out of the 1980s. Because it just... Apparently the director didn't realize it, but the writer who was gay wrote in these gay undertones. And the director was just so tone deaf he completely missed them. But, I mean, it's honestly not a bad movie. Look, there's some genuinely kind of scary bits in it, and Robert Englund is still very, very good in it. He's still scary Freddy in that.
Yeah, that's one thing I liked about what I've seen, little clips of, Freddy moments and stuff, is that he's still the menacing Freddy. He's not the quippy Freddy, And I like that version.
And you have that, and you have Quado from Total Recall, is the S&M crazed gym teacher who gets smacked in the ass with
that was weird.
But overall, I mean, it's a pretty good movie with a couple of weak points in it. It doesn't really make any sense why he wants to come into the real world.
Yeah, again, because that's always the way to kill him in the other movies, isn't it?
Some of them. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It
they do different things in most of them. But then you have, after that, you get Dream Warriors, which I think...
Which, honestly, is...
Yeah, I like it.
Pretty good. It's actually... It takes the concept and makes it a bit more... what's the word? It just makes it a bit more even. Exactly, and it's more... It makes it more of a battle, Whereas before, it was 100% slasher movie, whereas when you get to 3, it becomes more... I don't know how you describe it, almost fantasy horror in a way.
Freddy is still a genuine threat. My only real complaint with that movie is that some of them have really, like, they make this big deal out of how they can have powers in their dreams, but some of them have really dumb or useless powers. Like, the one woman whose powers is that she has a dumb haircut and she has switchblades.
Yeah, she just becomes a punk.
And then the one guy, he can talk. And then the one guy, he's the wizard master, which is stupid.
Oh god, yeah, that was such like
that's
the geek
what 1980s
thing as well.
Screenwriters thought Dungeons and Dragons were when they weren't the ones who thought it was Satanism. But
exactly. Yeah,
that one's actually not too bad. Part 4, I think it's okay.
Yeah, which one has Heather Langenkamp come back?
She comes back in 3. And 7.
Yeah, that's right.
And 7, we'll get to that. But
yeah, and number 4. I should say is I actually kind of like it.
Yeah, I like it for the most part. Like, it is the one where it goes full tilt into just the silly, what the hell kind of things. Oh
yeah, especially with the weird kind of 80s theme song that they made for it.
Well,
that was sung by the main character actress or something.
Well, part 3 had one too by Deusdaecon. But yeah, it was that was where Freddy basically became the James Bond quip, because like the quippy stuff starts in 3, but he's still menacing, and he is menacing to an extent in part 4, but he is a lot sillier. And like the whole Karate Kid inspired fight scene where he's fighting Invisible Freddy, like that's stupid, and they came up with that like the last minute.
Yeah, it did feel kind of ad-libbed in a way, just off the line.
It's really weird about this series is that the directors seem to go on to like other stuff. Like part 3 was the guy who did part 2 did Wishmaster 2, which isn't going on to anything.
No, that's staying the course.
That's going down.
Really.
But part 3 was Chuck Russell, who did he did like an Arnold movie. And he did Scorpion King with The Rock, which I like the first Scorpion King movie.
Oh, the first one,
the sequels, no. No. Well, the third one at least has Billy Zane.
Oh.
But then part 4 was directed by Rennie Harlan. No shit. It was.
It really was.
It was his first American movie.
I did not know that.
His first English language movie. He did that, and then right after that, there was a brief stint where he was supposed to direct Alien 3, but then he moved on to Die Hard 2.
Wow. That is surprising. I did not know that.
And then moving on to part 5, this movie... I mean, I liked part 4. I did really like Alice in part 4. I thought she was a good character. And I liked Freddy's death at the end of that, and I liked how the sequel bait was relatively subtle. And then part 5 is like, it's trying to be serious again with...
Now, jog my memory for a second.
It's the dream child where Alice is pregnant and Freddy is trying to come through is working through the fetus's dreams because fetuses are perpetually asleep.
Right, okay. Then we're starting to get into territory where I'm not familiar.
Well, this movie is really, it's just a dull, boring, not much happens movie. And Freddy is just like, he's still doing, like, there's a scene where they get, like, sucked into a comic book, and there's this lame joke where he turns into Super Freddy. And it looks like the Take On Me music video. And then and then, like, the mental image, like, the dream world incarnation of the unborn baby is what ends up killing Krueger at the end of the movie. It's like, really? And it's like a 10-year-old kid for some reason. Like, if it was like an actual like animatronic fetus like screaming at Freddy and killing him, that might have been cool. But
I could just imagine it being like the Star Child from 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Apparently, the script for that was originally a lot darker and weirder because they were going. I forget what the kind of horror they called it was, but it was like they wanted like a Clive Barker style horror. So the kind of horror that was coming out of Britain at that time. But the script that they wrote, they said, there's no way we can produce this. So yeah, they did that, and it was kind of a lame movie. And then after that, we get Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. Which,
no, I have seen that, and it does a few interesting things. Like, I like the idea that all the adults in Springwood are pretty much mental now because the children keep dying.
In a stupid way.
They did it in a stupid way, yeah. That was the problem with it. I think if it had a bit more subtlety, which this movie had none of that. Not this movie.
Well, Freddy's
Dead, I mean.
had none either.
Yeah. But yeah, it lacked any kind of subtlety or any kind of writing flair to actually get these scenes right. Because there were scenes in there that could have worked if they were written better. You know?
Certain things, like the whole Every Town Has an Elm Street. But the movie basically decided, okay, we're just going to be a cartoon.
Yeah, it was a Looney Tunes cartoon with blood.
That would have been fine if it was actually funny, but most of the jokes weren't funny. Like Freddy doing a Wicked Witch of the West impersonation isn't funny. Him killing a guy by making his hearing giving him super hearing and then dropping a pin and making his head explode isn't funny.
No, I mean...
Breckenmeyer bouncing around a kangaroo and then dying wasn't funny.
No, it's just ridiculous, because, I mean, for one thing, it doesn't make the kills horrific, it makes them less real, which means you're less likely to take them seriously and less likely to be scared by them. So it completely eliminates the whole point of a horror movie, you know?
Comedy, so.
Well, yeah, but again, I still think that's a really bad way to go anyway.
It worked for Jason, so I don't know. It's something you have to be very careful with. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it worked for Evil Dead.
Yeah, but I just think they took it too far. Yeah, but again,
they do take it too far.
It's probably down. Yeah, and it's probably down to the fact that I like menacing Freddy, not quippy Freddy. You know?
The quips were terrible, like the power glove joke.
Oh.
That was probably the only time awful. Outside of the Wizard that the power glove was actually useful.
Yeah,
you forgot the power glove.
I mean, Jesus. I mean, that was like one of the biggest groan moments for me, because it just comes out of nowhere. Just because was the guy playing video games? I don't think he was. It's just Freddy starts playing a video game and the kids in it
and watching TV.
Yeah, smoking pot, so it had nothing to do with it.
He was watching. I'll admit the Johnny Depp cameo on the TV was pretty funny. Doing this as your brain on drugs, and then Freddy kills him. That was
pretty
and I did like the joke where they're driving around in the van, and they're asking the guy to look at the map, and he's having a dream where the map keeps opening and it just says "you're fucked." He's like, Carlos, the map. Yeah, well, the map says we're fucked. That was funny. And then you have that stupid, it's going to go into 3D at the end, and Yaphet Kotto was in it for some reason.
Oh, yeah, he was. Before he was in Saw.
He was in Saw? I thought that was Danny Glover.
Wasn't he in Saw 3?
No.
He was in the third one.
I haven't seen that movie in years, so... Yeah, we'll look that up. But then you had things like they expanded even more on Freddy's backstory, which was stupid.
Yeah, wasn't Alice Cooper his father?
Adopted father. Because it was established in Part 3 that his mother was a nun working at an insane asylum who was gang raped. And so Freddy is the bastard son of 100 maniacs, which... Yeah, that's over the top, and we didn't really need it, but... Okay, fine, it makes him evil from birth, whatever. And then you get into this, and it's like, okay, he was evil from birth, and he was abused by Alice Cooper. And then he had a wife and kid, and he killed the wife because she found out he was killing kids. But then the script makes it sound like he was killing kids because they took the kid away from him. Which, first of all, you don't need to give him a sympathetic reason for killing children. That's just stupid.
No. That's nonsensical.
Yeah, and it's just and then that's where we find that we'll get into this when we talk about this first script, but he got his powers from the Dream Demons.
Yes, the Dream Demons.
So yeah, that movie was a bust. And then the 7th movie.
Yeah.
New Nightmare.
Which basically was created because Wes Craven looked at the previous films and said, I can't do anything with this. Let's do it differently.
And it was really good. It was a meta horror done well, and we'll see that done badly over the course of this episode.
Yes. Also, I looked it up. Yaphet Kotto was not in Saw 3. It was a guy with a similarly strange name, which possibly makes me sound racist, but I'm really not.
All black people look alike to you.
No. I was
okay,
mistaken.
But yeah, New Nightmare, it's a really clever idea. All it's really missing is having Robert Englund confront Freddy.
Yes, if that scene was in it, it would be perfect. And if you have seen any Nightmare on Elm Street film, then it's a great film, because you don't need to watch the previous ones. Mm-hmm. If you just know about the character of Freddy, it's a really great film.
Yeah, the whole idea of, the various people playing themselves, and it's all really quite well handled and all really interesting. And then, of course, went into deep freeze after that, because I don't think they really planned on doing another standalone Freddy movie at that point. I think they were planning Freddy versus Jason, and then they didn't know what the fuck. And eventually, the remake happened. It's not bad.
Yeah, it's passable, but it changes a bit differently. Like, it doesn't make him a child murderer, he's just a pedophile. Which
is creepy enough as it is, to be honest.
It really is, but it just makes him creepier without making him dangerous,
But
because he never felt dangerous outside of the dream stuff.
He was, though, although I will say Jackie Earle Haley is what makes the movie work, really. Because he is really good as Freddy.
Yeah, and do you know the fact that when Johnny Depp was picked up for the first film, he actually went to the audition with Jackie Earle Haley?
Because it was Jackie Earle...
Yeah, I was surprised by that. Yeah, it was such a strange coincidence.
That's a weird bit of casting in the original movie, because Johnny Depp is supposed to be this big jock. The little, 5.5 foot tall Johnny Depp.
Yeah, when he was still in that TV show
Street
phase.
Which I've never seen that show.
No, me neither.
So yeah, you have that. And so that's the two series, really. Now, Freddy vs. Jason in particular. Not a terrible amount to say about that movie, really. It's a passable enough little slasher movie.
For what they did with it, after reading the scripts at least, I can... It's passable,
It's the best version of it I've seen.
Yeah, because they balance the two characters really well. They don't give anyone a particular focus. And one thing I think these scripts don't do very well is they don't give the fight between the two a plausibility within their character. Mm-hmm. You either have to make Jason a good guy, which is stupid, or you have to do something else that doesn't make any sense. But we'll talk about that later.
Oh, yes.
The film gives Freddy and Jason a reason to fight that makes sense within the movie itself, but also makes sense for their characters. So in that sense, it's actually quite well written for the most part. Mm-hmm. There is problems with the film, though.
The human characters.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is with these films is that a lot of writers will just go for the typical teenager slasher victim.
And in this one...
Because that's
this one, they're not even the typical archetypes. They're just flat.
Yeah, pretty much. There's nothing particularly special or interesting about them. They have no personality outside of what happens in the film.
Especially when one of them is Catherine Isabel, and another one is Brendan Fletcher from Rampage.
Yeah.
He got the best death scene in the movie, though, from the Freddy.
Yeah, I'm still not too sure how that killed him, though. He got burnt on the back and slashed on the face.
It's Freddy, whatever. It's Freddy's only kill in the movie, so I'll overlook that.
That was pretty bad.
One problem. Him only having one kill, whereas Jason having a bunch, is a problem. Now, I don't think it's a problem Jason having more kills necessarily, because Jason has always had higher body counts in his movies. Like, there's always like 3 or 4 just cannon fodder characters that he axes. So
just to set it up as a killer.
Whereas Freddy was specifically stalking this group in his movies.
Yeah, he's always more stalking rather than killing at the first opportunity.
And I'm perfectly okay with Jason having more kills because that's just Jason, but Freddy only getting the one.
And it wasn't even that I mean, it was a good one for the character, but for Freddy, it really wasn't because it didn't show anything of him doing the actual killing. The guy just dies.
And then, it was a decent dream sequence. But you have Monica Keena is in it. Jason Ritter is really bad in it, but that's partly because he was a last-second replacement.
Yeah, I mean, what's weird about watching that film again, because I watched it yesterday, is that I've been watching a load of Gravity Falls. Jason Ritter plays the main character in that, so it's a very weird disconnect in my mind now.
But yeah, he was a last-second replacement for Brad Renfro, who got drunk and went on a bender and disappeared.
Oh,
and then Monica Keena was hired because she had decent chemistry with her, with him. But then he disappeared and ended up in a rehab clinic in Arizona. So and they were filming in Vancouver, I think, because everything's filmed there now.
Oh yes, for horror movies specifically.
So I guess Canada has given us something,
for better or worse.
There's that, and then they did. And there are other problems which I don't blame the original writers for, like Jason being afraid of water. Is so stupid, but that was the David Goyer edition.
Yeah, because I mean, I saw a video. I can't remember what it was, but basically just criticizing that one fact. It shows the scene of them figuring out that Freddy figuring out that Jason's afraid of water. And then he just plays clips from all the Friday the 13th movies where he's either walking into water, walking through water, and not batting an eyelid.
Yes.
There's just no reason for it.
What happened was that the script they wrote would have been like 2.5 hours long. And so they needed to reduce and simplify a bunch of things. But if you watch, I forget if it's the Elm Street documentary or the Crystal Lake Memories documentary, where you see those two writers and they point out two specific things they didn't write. They say the whole Jason is afraid of water thing, and the one girl calling Freddy a faggot.
Right, yeah.
So
I can understand you want not to mention those.
And so David Goyer is responsible for those. Figures. Yeah. He was on one of his off days instead of one of his on days, because he's one of the most weirdly variable writers ever.
Yeah, he seems to be getting a lot more off days nowadays,
So that's Freddy vs. Jason. It's all right. Like, there's some interest. Like, I kind of wonder why they didn't bring any other characters back. Like I know.
Probably they didn't want to make it so they would leave. If they brought in Friday the 13th characters, then the Jason fans would feel left out, So they would have to bring in equal amounts from each side. It's a very difficult balance to make.
Yeah, there's that, and I know there was a subplot that was in the third act where how there's like that weird construction site at Crystal Lake that's not explained.
Yeah, it just comes out of nowhere. There was actually
a subplot in the final act of that script where they were redeveloping the area, and there was a bunch of protesters protesting people building around Crystal Lake, and one of them was Tommy Jarvis. And they got as far as casting Jason Bateman, which that would have been interesting.
Just Jason Bateman just shows up out of nowhere.
And one of the there was another major female character in there. That was who Catherine Isabel was originally cast as, and they liked her so much that they gave her the other role and told the actress who got that role to go screw, essentially.
But yeah, I mean, the character she plays is quite different to any other character I've seen her play. It would have been cool. She doesn't use.
It would have been cool if she turned into a werewolf and ate Freddy. Or
that would have been interesting.
Or if she was just her character from Hannibal.
Yeah, she just becomes a manipulative bitch. But yeah, because her character in the movie is just the smoking, drinking, typical teenage girl thing. Yeah, exactly, and it's just nothing I've really seen her do.
And her boyfriend gets killed in the fold-up bed. It just seemed a bit.
Oh yeah, but it just seemed very unusual for her to play that character because she seems to play a bit more out of the norm.
Yeah, well, that and 30 Days of Night too.
Oh yeah, we don't
talk about that one, and we don't talk about her tiny bit role in Rampage.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's Freddy vs. Jason. Now, to move on to the scripts, I suppose we have. I'll give a little bit of history. Is that basically this started in the late 80s, that both Paramount and New Line discovered that the fans wanted a crossover, and I forgot to talk about something about fuck it. And that they tried to arrange a deal, but that didn't happen. Eventually, instead of Freddy versus Jason, we got Jason versus Carrie in Part 7. And then the whole thing with New Line getting the rights to Jason happened, and they set it up at the end of Jason Goes to Hell that there's going to be a crossover. And so pretty much what happened at that point in 1993 is that Michael DeLuca, the head of New Line, and Sean S. Cunningham, who's the Friday the 13th producer, they commissioned 2 different scripts. One of which we'll be talking about. The one DeLuca commissioned was written by Ethan Rafe and Cyrus Voris, who nowadays are known for writing the Nottingham script that got turned into Ridley Scott's Robin Hood.
Yeah.
Basically one of those great unproduced screenplays, which will be an episode. But one of the things they introduced was the idea that Freddy molested Jason as a child at the camp.
Yeah.
And that idea kind of filtered into the other scripts. But the one that Sean S. Cunningham, the one that he commissioned, was this Louis Abernathy script called, I have to talk about this title, Nightmare 13, Freddy Meets Jason, which, did he really think there were 12 Nightmare movies before this? Or either that or he was trying to combine the titles?
It does feel like he's trying to combine the titles in a very bad way, because it just doesn't work.
It just sounds like he's saying, we're definitely going to get, 4 more Freddy movies before this one comes out. 5 more.
Yeah. I just don't like the whole Freddy meets Jason. What the hell does that mean? They're going to go out for a date?
Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, dude.
Yeah, but it just doesn't really work. Freddy meets Jason now.
And this guy, Louis Abernathy, before I get into the details of the script, he's written 2 other things, one of which was a TV movie I haven't seen, and the other one was Deep Star 6, one of the underwater-based movies, which was either because there was a whole bunch of movies that came out at the same time that did this. Some of them were coincidental, and some of them were trying to cash in on the impending release of The Abyss. And this was part of that whole thing. I think it was a coincidental one, but it was a decent enough little underwater movie with a giant lobster thing attacking these people, and Miguel Ferrer explosively decompresses.
Yeah.
But and he has a bunch of minor acting roles, including he's one of Bill Paxton's treasure hunting team in Titanic, because he.
Yeah, we're pretty sure he's the bearded nerd guy.
So.
Yeah, he's the one that's so gleeful about the destruction of the Titanic.
He got it because he's a friend of James Cameron, and he's part of the whole underwater exploration thing that Cameron's been doing. So yeah, that's the most notable thing he did. This screenplay, and Sean S. Cunningham got him because I think he knew him, because Sean S. Cunningham produced Deep Star 6. He might have directed it, I'm not sure. But they knew each other from that. And this script, what the fuck? Is all I can say. This is one of the dumbest pieces of crap I have ever read.
It really is.
The summary of this script is, Freddy is he dead, or
well, that's the weird question, is that it's implied that he's dead and can't come back, even though he invades people's dreams throughout the film, and then he comes back, and that's apparently different to him being dead before.
It's not very well explained, because he's able to come into people's dreams, but he can't kill them, which is just way the fuck over the character. But he's in some sort of weird limbo, and Jason is currently dead. He got killed by this guy. We'll talk about that. So yeah, that doesn't at all connect to Jason Goes to Hell.
No, there's no connection there whatsoever.
It references Freddy's dead quite a bit. But the basic setup is that there's this Freddy cult who is holed up in Freddy's Elm Street house, which that's a stupid fucking retcon from the franchise that this just reinforces. And then, so they get raided by the cops, but they get away, and they kidnap the main character's little sister, who's mentally disabled, and the main character's name is Megan, and her sister Lizzie. And they kidnap her so they can perform this ritual to bring Freddy back in some weird way. And over half the script is spent on setting all this crap up, and then they just go and get Jason, whom they say drowned as a child and then came back to look for revenge, which isn't what happened. He didn't drown as a child, which it's a stupid retcon when you think about it, but whatever, it gave us Jason as an adult. He didn't actually die until Tommy Jarvis, Corey Feldman, chopped his head horizontally with a machete, and then he got dug up and struck by lightning and came back Frankenstein style. That's where we got zombie Jason from.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're trying to unretcon something that just makes the series continuity even worse. So yeah, basically it's they have to rescue the little girl from the Freddy cult, and they decide to get Jason to help them.
Yeah, but it's not really well established that it's because Jason is just a reason, or not a reason, sorry, a way of killing Freddy. Yes. At least that's what they think.
That's pretty much it.
He doesn't have much agency in the plot anywhere else,
except for one thing, which we'll get to. Which is so utterly retarded. What they do to his backstory. But okay, so let's run down the problems with this script. The main characters are Megan, who is boring. Her boyfriend Jesse, who is an idiot. And boring. Their friend Stormy, who is this annoying hipster.
Yeah, annoying hipster who has so many different, what they're called, phases.
She was in the Freddy cult at one point.
Yeah, that's literally her only connection and the reason why she's in it, because she has this thing.
And we'll talk about the Freddy cult in a minute, but the next character who's part of this main group is an ex-cultist named Irwin.
Who I'm pretty sure Brendan Fletcher's character came from.
I just read it as him a little bit. Because Brendan Fletcher was the one who knew everything. He was the creepy guy who knew everything. And that's this guy.
Yeah, exactly. It's basically the same character. He was the only character
I liked at all in the script. I only liked him slightly, but he's basically the character who knows everything, and it makes sense to a degree that he knows about Freddy, but then he just knows everything about Jason too. You have Lizzie, who is supposed to be mentally disabled, but she talks like a normal person.
Yeah, there's no actual evidence that she's mentally disabled.
And you have their parents, who are just mom and dad.
Well, you've got the drunk mom and the non-existent father.
Basically.
That's it.
They didn't even have names. And then you have the police officer who is chasing down the Freddy cult, whose name is Murdoch.
Who is the most insane police officer I've ever seen in my entire life.
The way he acts and talks, he's like a combination of the later Flanderized version of Dirty Harry. And Dolph Lundgren's character from Universal Soldier.
I would go further. I would say he's like an insane version of Judge Dredd.
Well, that's a...
because...
he is Judge... He's Judge Rico.
Yeah, exactly.
He even has the deformities. Because you see...
Yeah. Because, I mean, one of the lines in the script I just thought was like, what the fuck? Is he's talking to the parents of the main character. And he's going off to find the girls. And he just straight up tells the parents, I'm going to find your kids. If they've been brainwashed in any way, I'll shoot them in the head. That's basically what he says.
He actually thinks that the little mentally disabled girl has been a member of the cult all along because she drew a picture of Freddy after her dream or something.
Right.
Which is just... What? Does logic mean nothing to this guy? And what doesn't make any sense is that all the other police listen to him.
Yeah, he has this bizarre amount of power for someone who's clearly off his nut and just wants to kill people. You know, it's weird.
He's almost the main villain of this script. Because
because
for
so
a lot
weird.
of it, Freddy is a background character and Jason becomes the good guy, and the Freddy cult has no personality here. And I'll talk about them when I'm in between scripts because they're kind of carried over during the writing process. But okay, let's talk about this Freddy cult. We're introduced to them. Their cult compound is that normal suburban house on Elm Street. And they have booby traps, including a piranha pool.
Yeah, they have ridiculous amount of booby traps. It's like Jigsaw if he never stopped.
Exactly.
in a house.
It's like the house from Saw 2. Only way more
Yeah,
over the
exactly.
But but it's so weird as how casually people talk about this cult like it's just always been there.
Yeah, they talk about it, and it's like, oh, the cult's on TV again. It's like, they're bad. Yeah. They shouldn't be there. You should be more alarmed by these people.
Yes, and it's like they're treated so casually, like people, like it's like a casual thing that people used to be members. And they do this thing where they dress like Freddy, and they burn themselves to look like Freddy, which how the hell are they still alive?
Yeah, well, from what I understood is that they just scar their faces.
Oh, I thought they burned themselves. Like,
no, I think it's just, they just do like a weird facial burn, I think.
Well, either way, but...
Yeah, it wasn't. But the stupidest thing was the sunglasses they had.
Oh, the glasses that allowed them to see dreams.
Yeah, because they have blinking LEDs in the lenses, because that helps you dream for some reason.
This movie would have been in 3D then.
Yeah,
but,
pretty
like,
much. I wouldn't be surprised, actually.
Freddy's dead. But, okay, so the Freddy cult... First of all, they don't make any sense, because how do they know about Freddy? Everybody who knows about Freddy is either dead, or they're not going to do something like this.
Yeah, and why would Freddy give a shit anyway?
Why would they give a shit about Freddy?
Yeah, there's no reason for them to interact. Wouldn't Freddy just kill them? You know, because they see him and they talk with him, and he's like, "Hi guys," and they're just, "Hi back," and it's like they're friends. It's like, what?
Yeah, it's just ugh. And so they're just there. And okay, I have to talk about this because when I was reading it, this most of it was just stupid, and I was like, oh, this is fucking stupid. This part actually really got to me, just how awful and tone deaf it was. Where Irwin reveals that the ritual that they're planning on doing is I was confused about the details anyways, because they want to bring Freddy into the world to possess. They want to bring him back in some way. It's not clear how, but they want to bring him into the real world so he can wed the little girl, because they need a virgin. And then I don't know I guess Freddy possesses her or something, and then the cult.
Well, what I read is that they bring Freddy back. He marries her.
Yes,
they gang rape the child. Which is absolutely
fucked up. Yes, that's what got me.
And then he possesses the fetus.
Yeah, something like that, but it's like, because they want to emulate the bastard son of 100 maniacs thing, which, how the hell do they know about that? The only reason Craig Lasson knew about that in part 3 is because Ghost Nun told him.
Yeah, it's nonsensical rubbish.
And so but then nobody comments on just how fucked up that is. They say like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah. They're really nonchalant about everything these cultists do.
Yeah, I don't like this cult at all. And then, to get to Freddy, I suppose, Freddy he's in this weird thing where he can come into people's dreams. But he can't kill people because he needs the dream demons to kill people, which why the fuck did they bring the dream demons back? And
yeah, that's not necessary at all.
And there's that, and there's this thing where they take the girl to hell, and it's like a tentacle goes down her throat or something.
For what I remember, it's basically the dream demons. She gets put into the portal. Yeah. The portal into the dream dimension hell is never really specified. And then the dream demons go into her mouth. They bring her out, and somehow she vomits up the dream demons into a Tupperware box. Which they specifically mention.
They go to Freddy's remains from part 3, so okay, they watch that movie. And they put him in Freddy's bones, and that it gives him the power to kill again. And so then he gets his, one kill at this point. He kills the dumb boyfriend. After...
Yeah. Also, before we move on as well, I really hate when Freddy comes back, because he has the stupidest quip, and it's so Jim Carrey. Because he comes back and he just says, "Smoking."
Yes.
Out of nowhere.
Oh, I think... let me see if I wrote a note on that. I gotta look.
Because, he comes back and he says "smoking" as if it means something, but it doesn't mean anything. What's smoking?
Was that there was no fire? From Ace Ventura? Oh, the
No, that
mask.
was the mask.
Okay, so they tried to turn him into the mask. Okay, whatever.
Yeah, essentially, it was the mask. It was just directly referencing the mask. It's
But
so
no, he
stupid.
has terrible jokes throughout this whole thing. One of which,
Yeah.
there are a couple of jokes in this I did laugh at. But, like, the opening dream sequence, he grabs Megan's arm and he says, "Baby, where you been all my death?"
Oh,
And then...
they're barely
and then
jokes,
there's the dream
let's
from
be
the
honest.
dream, which, okay, there's the other dream within the dream from that dream sequence, where she pulls the Freddy doll out of a toy chest. He was like, Freddy is like, "Well, it ain't Raggedy Ann, bitch," which I did kind of chuckle at a little bit.
He does say bitch a lot.
He says it in all
in
of
this
them. Well,
script.
he says it a bunch of times in the actual movies.
Yeah, but it's in the movies. It's a lot less prominent. Whereas here, he pretty much says bitch every time he's talking to someone. I mean, are you familiar with Rick and Morty?
I've heard of them.
There's an episode where they parody Freddy, and even the characters just stop for a second and go, "You know, he really does say bitch a lot." And that's what I was thinking about this script. And it's just so ridiculous how that seems to be the only thing they can do with him speaking, is to call people bitch. There's nothing creative other than that, you know?
Yeah, and okay, and just reading on about this, so they break Irwin out of the mental hospital where he's been holed up at, and of course,
which they find remarkably
it is. It's
easy
about
as well.
easy as it is in that one Silent Hill draft where it all occurs off screen. But
yeah,
which future episode reference. But but so they break him out, and then Murdoch goes nuts, and basically says, "Okay, It says, oh, of course they're cult members, they're bad guys." And so he's chasing after them. And so eventually they decide they need someone who can kick Freddy's ass. So they go to Jason's grave to dig him up, because Irwin knows how to resurrect the dead for some reason.
Yeah, somehow. It's never really explained how.
I did laugh when they get to Jason's grave and, like, the date of death is, like, crossed out a bunch of times.
Yeah, I like that. That it had the date of death and it was crossed out, scratched in a new one. That was pretty clever and funny.
And so
I like that.
they dig him up and he's in pieces, and they put him in the trunk. And this is over halfway through the script, by the way. And Jason is just a bunch of body parts in the trunk of a car. This is like a huge fuck you to Jason fans. Well, it's a fuck you to the fans of both, really, when you get down to it.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a Freddy script with Jason. That's it, and it's pathetic.
But it's a fuck you to Freddy, because Freddy has terrible jokes. When he's
it's a bad
worse than usual. Because you go into, when they do have their fight scene at the end, he eats spinach and grows Popeye muscles.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, I remember that. It's terrible.
Okay, so pretty much what happens is that Freddy gets his kill powers back, and he kills Jesse in a dream, because they're using these drugs that can take them into the dream, apparently. He kills Jesse, and Jesse's body gets sent to the morgue, and then Irwin's stitching the body together, and lo and behold, the heart is missing. And
yeah, he needs a fresh heart.
By the way, they mention after the body has been stitched together with a bunch of things like fishing reel and chicken wire and barbed wire. And they say he looks 90s and butch.
Yeah, it specifically says that. What the hell does that mean? 90s.
Like Superman, 90s style.
God.
But yeah,
she goes to the morgue to get her boyfriend's
she cuts it
heart
out rather nastily, and that actually filters on into a later script, but that's for later in the episode. And then she puts it into Jason, and then they push it. There's this whole subplot. Do they get arrested before or after this?
I think they get arrested after
so
all of that stuff.
They get like a bunch of weird wires and stuff and push Jason out into the lake on the raft. He gets struck by lightning and resurrected. Still...
Oh, no, it's not lightning. They use
the power
electricity.
Cable, that's right.
Which doesn't make sense because a lake wouldn't become entirely electrocuted. It would just be a small area. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, whatever. That's not the most ridiculous thing in this script.
I'm complaining about really small things in bed.
Jason comes back to life and starts stalking them. But then eventually Megan talks to him, and they come to a deal where they say, you help us kill Freddy, and we'll help you find whoever killed you.
Well, it's the way it's described as well. I honestly, in my head, it was like, and Jason's heart grew 3 sizes that day. Because he has this bit where he sees the locket of her boyfriend, and he's like grabbing for it and holding it out. It's so cheesy.
And then he goes to shake hands, but then Murdoch shows up. And I suppose we should mention that Murdoch and Jason have a history.
Because they needed to make that off-screen.
Where they were fighting. He was going after Jason. They were fighting, and Jason split his head open with a machete, and then he killed Jason with a bullet to the eye, which shouldn't be possible for zombie Jason.
No, I mean, yeah, he's had so much more punishment than that. It's ridiculous. And how come the guy is not dead from a machete to the head? It's ridiculous.
But yeah, that. By the way, that's not how Jason Goes to Hell ends with Jason. The actual movie picks up on that because Jason is in hell at the beginning and quite enjoying himself.
Yeah, it kind of forgets its own continuity, really.
Yeah, this whole thing forgets continuity. I mean, I can forgive Freddy versus Jason for ignoring Freddy's dead because the whole, it's set in a vague time in the future and Springwood is vacated. Like, okay, you can't really work with that, so...
Yeah.
So, okay, they get arrested by Murdoch, and Irwin's getting sent in a ambulance to the mental hospital. So Stormy and Megan go to jail, and there's this weird bit where Megan is in the shower with the jailhouse bitches.
It specifically calls them jailhouse bitches as well.
It says jailhouse bitches like 1,000,000 times on the same page. And
I had to read that several times just to understand what the hell they meant. It just basically means butch women.
Not as butch
basically.
As Jason,
it's ridiculous. No. But, I mean, is that... Because that's actually... That happens later because they go to jail. Right. It's her and Stormy in there. And something happens and then they get split up. Is that after the death scene, though?
Let me check my...
Because I can't remember if it was after
the death scene. Basically, they get sent to different cells.
Right.
And, okay, do you want to do Stormy's death scene, or should I?
You can do that.
Okay.
Because it's
Freddy,
so ridiculous.
she falls asleep. And Freddy is killing her in her dreams. What he does is that he shrinks her down, sucks her into his nose.
And she basically has an extended conversation with one of his snot.
Boogers.
Yeah. Because there was a scene previously in the film where Irwin teases her with him picking his nose. It's fucking stupid.
Which I kept expecting those two to get together for some reason, but
I'm pretty sure that was pretty much implied.
Yeah, but yeah, they have a conversation with the nose, and he sticks his knife finger up there to try and get her, but he picks out Mr. Booger and splats him up against the wall. And
his name is Mr. Booger in the script, by the way.
And then he blows his nose so hard she flies out and splatters against the cell wall,
which causes her real body to explode. And because Megan was in the same cell, they assume she did it, which they also assume that she killed her boyfriend. So it's all this nonsense.
Stupid mistaken identity crap. And then it comes to the weird scene with the jailhouse bitches and
where they make her shower with all the other inmates, which I didn't think a small jail would have that many inmates, or even showers. But she showers with all the other women, and they attempt to rape her. There's no other way of putting it. And she fights back. She claws the ringleader in the face, but then she says, "Oh no, I'm sorry, I really like you," and then kisses her, and then they're hugging.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
It's the most jarring, weird scene I've ever seen. Crazy.
Okay, it's also revealed at this point that the Freddy cult is taking Lizzie for their gang raping to this Christian broadcasting center called WGOD.
The W stands for worship.
Which the GOD must stand for nothing then.
What does the GOD stand for? A good old deity? What?
That actually would make sense because they need a reverend to marry off Freddy and Lizzie. So they...
Although I should mention, it's not technically hallowed ground, because it specifically asks for hallowed ground, and they just go to the studio.
Not hallowed ground, but the Reverend is named Reverend Lovejoy.
Yes.
I got nothing.
So,
I got nothing.
obviously... Reverend Lovejoy. Wow. I mean, they couldn't have got that worse if they just called him Flanders.
Flanders is one of the guys there at the station who gets killed.
Oh yeah.
And then I
forgot about that.
That would have been funny if he was. He's not actually there. But then also what's happened in the meantime is that Jason has rescued Irwin from the ambulance, and they're driving the ambulance to go after the cultists, and Jason is driving.
Oh well, there's actually an extended scene where he talks to Irwin, but not really talking. He just shows him the locket and is like, "Show me where this person is." And he's basically like Old Yeller or something. Timmy's trapped down the well kind of moment, you know?
Yeah,
Lassie, not Old Yeller. That's a different thing altogether.
Shot.
Yeah. So Lassie, yeah. It's very much a Lassie moment.
And then, so they get, which this is just stupid. How does Jason know how to drive? Like,
yeah.
This makes less sense than Michael Myers knowing how to drive.
Yeah, and it's kind of signposted as well, because when Irwin does show up, they say, "What took you so long?" And he says, "Don't let that guy drive." Well, we could have told you that. He's a corpse.
Yeah, and then they basically do it to go through the defensive lines the cultists have set up.
Yeah, because again, even before this, when they were at the house, they had this bizarre amount of defenses that nobody really batted an eyelid at. Mm-hmm. And only now they should be taken seriously.
And, I gotta mention before that there was something I missed. When they resurrect Jason, he has a flashback to his childhood, where his abusive father forces him to wear the hockey mask whenever he's in public. Problem.
Yeah.
Problem. Jason doesn't get the hockey mask until part 3, when he was already an adult. And it says that he died, that the drowning was in 1953, and I'm pretty sure that the original movie said he drowned in 57. So,
yes.
Yeah. And also, he wasn't murdered. It was supposed to have been an accident. Negligence, but an accident.
And it feels a lot like people having a checklist of what to do with Jason without actually doing any of the real research someone who actually cared about the mythos would actually do. You know, all these little details they've left out because they didn't think it would be important. But if you're a real fan, it's those things that you notice, you know? And I think that's perfectly describes what these writers are like.
The people who would see this movie are the people who are going to care about that shit.
Yeah, exactly. And it's basically what I'm saying is it wasn't a fan who wrote it.
And so we get back to they're attacking the TV station, and Jason kills a bunch of the cultists, follows Freddy into the dreamscape, and this is where they end up in a boxing ring.
Literally a boxing ring with audiences.
Dreamscape in hell, and the referee is Ted Bundy, who gets shot in the head by Lee Harvey Oswald. And
it's passed off as a joke as well. He's like, "Oh, you shooting people in the head." And the audience
includes Mussolini, Bloody Mary, Hitler, and Eva Braun.
Yeah.
And so they fight, and before we get to the fight, that's just like, wow. Yeah, why?
Yeah. If you can get over the fact of the audience filled with the most notorious people in all of history.
Here comes the fight, where it's just cartoony shit like Freddy eating spinach and growing Popeye muscles.
Or getting an enlarged metal boxing glove that grows spikes or something.
Stupid. And then we get a flashback. Jason flashes back to his drowning, and you find out that the counselor who drowned him was a 13-year-old Freddy. They felt the need to have Jason be the one who killed Freddy. Freddy be the one who killed Jason.
Which is kind of the same. Yeah, which is kind of the same thing with the Joker and Batman. You know? People want to make the Joker part of his origin, but you just shouldn't. And again, it's the same here. You shouldn't make them part of each other's history, because it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
just leave it.
You don't need a personal connection between the two of them. Jason barely has any emotions as it is.
Yeah. I mean, who looks at Jason and thinks, he could use more emotion? Yes, it just doesn't make any sense.
And believe it or not, this idea carries across into all of the other scripts, more or less.
All of them.
All of the ones I read, it carries over into. So these guys must have been comparing notes or some shit.
Yeah.
Fuck, it's always stupid. And I'm going to rant about it every single time it comes up in this episode.
Yeah. It is ridiculous. I mean, it's hard to tell if it was coincidence or them just taking the previous scripts and changing them. But either way, basically they should have sat down anyone writing these scripts and said, okay, are you giving them a personal connection? If you are, get out.
Yes.
Because it's just all of them, and it gets
just even more ridiculous the further you go into these things, too. Like, it just gets worse and worse. Now, okay, so you have that, and then Jason ends up killing Freddy, who gets into the TV station's communication cables.
Yeah, he goes to the wires, and he's going to be beamed to the world like he's Skynet. But then Jason
knocks it out of alignment, and Freddy gets beamed into the sun.
Yeah, it's like, apparently radio waves are affected by sunlight.
Green Lantern ending.
Yeah, it was. Oh, God.
And
then you've got the ridiculous death scene of Murdoch.
Jason gets, like, knocked out or something, and then Murdoch comes, kills Irwin, and he tries to kill Megan, but then Jason sticks a shotgun up his ass so far it comes out his mouth, and then blows his brains out.
At least we think it comes out of his mouth. It's very badly described. Because he somehow manages to shove the shotgun all the way up inside this guy and still manage to cock it.
And then the cops kill Jason, which is like, okay.
Yeah, that scene as well. There's like several paragraphs of these cops just firing ungodly amounts of ammunition into this guy, where they literally become like just in like a ball pit of bullet casings almost.
Mm-hmm. It's just ridiculous. And then it ends with, turns out Freddy's still around in the dream world, which makes the entire script fucking
Of course
pointless.
It is. Yeah. But, I mean, that bit as well is that Megan goes to sleep or something. She sees Freddy. He says something along the lines of, I'm still waiting in your dream, blah, blah, blah. And then she has a gun under her pillow, and apparently that's supposed to help. And she just says, yeah, I know you're waiting, but I'm ready, blah, and then it doesn't make any sense.
And then we get a scene that's supposed to go after the credits, which beating Marvel Studios by over a decade. Where it goes back to the boxing ring in hell, and then there's this monster who's like, I don't think they're coming back, and Ted Bundy says, okay, folks, show's over. Everybody can go home now.
Yeah, because apparently we needed extra from Bundy and the crew. It was funny, but it was
in a way,
very
it was
out
kind
of place.
Of like the end credit scene of Django Unchained. Where it's just like,
yeah, it kind of was.
So yeah, the script, piece of shit.
It really was.
I can understand why they didn't go with this, because apparently both this and the Rafe and Voris draft, which was, they were commissioned around the same time, nobody really liked either of them. So they just so they turned them down. And then over the next several years, they basically just gave the job to anybody who signed up. And like there's one thing I read in this article where David J. Schau, who is one of the writers of The Crow, he wrote a draft, and he just got the job because he walked into Bob Shaye's office one day.
They were just so desperate to make this thing happen.
And then moving on to this next draft we have by Brannon Braga and Ronald D. Moore, of Star Trek and Battlestar Galactica fame.
Yeah, that's crazy. Why those
and this
two?
One is dated 1995. So this was around the premiere of Voyager. Oh boy.
Oh yeah, it was.
Just talking about them, Brannon Braga came up with the story for the Voyager episode Threshold, where Tom Paris and Janeway turn into lizards and then fuck.
Yes, and then somehow magically get better
Which
from
is
being
Voyager
evolved.
in a nutshell.
Yeah.
So yeah, these two guys got it, and this script, I'll give this script a tiny bit of credit for being ambitious and a little bit clever. Okay, let me explain the premise of this script. The idea is that it's taking place mainly in Crystal Lake, and Springwood, they eventually reveal, is only about 8 miles away, which is stupid. And it turns out that there really is a Jason, and he really has killed a lot of people over the years. But he's not the Jason we know. The Jason movies are movies that were made about this real guy.
Yeah, he's not a mutant. He's not a zombie. He's just a crazy guy.
Crazy guy who has like claw marks on his face.
Yeah, it specifically points out in the script that he looks normal for the most part.
And he does wear a hockey mask, but it begins with they end up finding him in his old Voorhees house in the woods, and he's almost catatonic, and they bring him. He gets arrested and brought in to go put him on trial, and he has the public defender who's really trying to defend him because she doesn't want this. She doesn't want him to be judged based on the reputation he has from the movies.
It's so that's really weird though, because this woman, his defender, is so devoted to defending this guy when he's so obviously guilty. I mean, there's taking your job seriously, and then there's insanity. Why would you want to have this guy free?
Yes, there's that, and then it turns out that Jason has this condition where he's unable to fall asleep. And so,
well, that's what they say as well, is that in the thing, he doesn't have insomnia. He has, what was it, somnolescence.
His hypothalamus or something.
Yeah, but the word they give it literally just means insomnia again.
Yes, and what it is, okay, so they decide to force him into sleep with drugs to try and prove it. And then somehow this brings out Freddy.
Yeah, because apparently Freddy can come to our world again. Why would he want to? Through Jason's body.
Just randomly shows up in this part.
Yeah, there's no particular explanation.
He just appears in the script, and they eventually find out about him. And he can apparently use Jason's body as a doorway, and it's never really explained terribly well.
Yeah, and it's literally a doorway as well, because he climbs in and out of the guy's chest.
And he kills a few people. And of course, people think Jason did it.
Yeah.
And so eventually, Freddy is going to use Jason to come into the real world, and he's going to have his powers. He's going to have like the power to make people dream in the real world. He's Pinhead in Hellraiser 3. Now, the weird thing with this is that they go into this whole alternate history of the real Jason, where he was missing, presumed dead in a canoe accident when he was a kid, and his mother died a couple of years later of ovarian cancer, so she wasn't a killer at all. But then in 1980, there was a series of killings at the campground, and that's how the movie sprang up. But you get to Freddy, and he's literally just Freddy. There's no twist to him whatsoever.
Yeah, it's like they didn't even bother.
It's like they started out just writing it as them being all sort of meta and clever with their Jason script, and then they just threw Freddy in because it was a Freddy versus Jason script they were hired to write, or Jason versus Freddy as it's called. So it really comes off like kind of a fuck you to Jason fans, because like you're getting Jason, but you're not really getting Jason.
Yeah, it's because it's not Jason.
No, it's
let's
not
be honest.
This is kind of an interesting idea, which I wouldn't mind seeing expanded in like a comic or something. But for the Freddy versus Jason movie, you want to see the Jason fight Freddy.
Yeah, exactly. It completely negates the whole point of the movie. Really, because it's not the same Jason. It just
seems like a pointless exercise in meta horror, in meta fiction, and it's just not very good.
Yeah.
It's just weird. Like, and when they do fight the first time, they fight for about 10 seconds. It feels like in the
pretty
world,
much,
and then it's over. And then but it's like it's just Freddy. I mean, I can't get over the fact that it's a script that's just it's the true story of Jason, and he goes on trial, and then Freddy shows up, and he's just Freddy, and there's no twist to it. It just seems pointless.
Yeah, there's no attempt at like what the final chapter did, and no, not the final chapter. I'm getting my bloody shows mixed up. The A New Nightmare. Sorry,
Final
New Nightmare.
chapter is the one with Corey Feldman. Yes,
that's right. Yeah, I was getting Jason mixed up with Freddy then. But yeah, it's not like they did with New Nightmare, which was clever meta. This is just meta for no reason, just to mess with Jason and its fans, and then not bother doing any kind of establishment for Freddy outside of what we already know from the other movies.
And I will give the script this in terms of Freddy. At least he is menacing here, and he's not throwing off stupid jokes every 5 seconds.
Yeah, although he does still do that occasionally,
but it's not nearly as pervasive.
Yeah, it's not as bad as the other script.
Yeah, it was just like where that was all it was. And then we get other meta scenes, like Ruby Jarvis, the public defender, she's watching one of the Jason movies, and then she's just smugly mocking them. And and this is actually before Scream came out, so.
Yeah, well, that was just it as well. She was watching these like stereotypical slasher movies, and she was commenting on how, oh, don't go in there, you're going to die. And all I was thinking was, you really shouldn't throw your stones in this little glass house of yours. Mm-hmm. Because that's what you're doing right now. You're making fun of things that you are doing intentionally, and you have no self-awareness whatsoever about that.
And so you have that, and you have like a bunch of dream sequences from Jason, one of which involves him being chased through the woods by an unburned Freddy. And then you have another...
He's always a child in his dreams as well. That's another thing.
Because he's dreaming about the past, basically. He's dreaming about how when he was a kid, he walked in on his mother having sex with Freddy.
Yeah, and it's way over the top. Like, it describes the fact that Freddy is pounding his mother against the bed ridiculously. And they show it at least 3 times, I think. It morphs into the first fight between them, which that's how Freddy discovers that Jason is a door, because he punches right into them and drags the one guy in the room partly into the dream world. Yeah, but again, it's not particularly well established. It just happens. And then because Ruby sees the Freddy glove, she goes onto the incredibly dated internet search, like Wishmaster 2 style, and then finds out, and then looks up all the information about Freddy, and it's exactly, as before, it's exactly the same as his movies, which makes it weird that Jason has this meta thing going on, and it doesn't with Freddy. Yeah, so apparently, in the Freddy universe, Jason is a movie, but he's also real, but not the same. It doesn't make sense. And then there's things like, they excavate a bunch of bodies at Jason's house. Yeah, like 47 or something like that. She's walking around, and she finds Freddy's hat, which doesn't make any sense, because he died with it. I believe that's what they imply in the Nightmare movies. No, yeah. And it's like she finds his hat as if that's some kind of shocking reveal as well, when we've literally seen him there already. And then, she ends up having this weird vision of past events where she's like following little boy Jason around, and at the time it starts, it's not really well explained why it's happening. No, it's just happened. And it kind of implies that because it's happening in Jason's dream, it's also happening in the real world or something like that. But it's not established. And it's just it starts because she's under the bed. She's looking for stuff under the bed, and then it just starts moving as if people are having really vicious sex on top. Ridiculous. And while that's going on, they tried to repeat the dream experiment with Jason, which results in Freddy being able to enter into the real world. Yeah, Freddy just literally walks through his chest, and he's back. Why would he want to do that? Yeah. Like what? Yeah, he now can be killed. He has superpowers now in the real world, which I guess is something, but it's nothing he can't just do when people are asleep. So there's no advantage to him being in the real world. I just don't know why he would want that. I don't get it either. Yeah. because both these scripts have him wanting to become real, but the first one is like, why would you want to become a baby? And then the second one is, why would you want to become killable? Either way, it makes no sense.
And of course, Ruby is finding stuff out, and she finds the canoe with the claw marks in it, which is basically implying that Freddy killed Jason or caused a drowning accident.
Even though he didn't have the claw.
At least he shouldn't have at that point.
No, because it's implied. Well, it's literally said that Jason is his first kill. Okay. And he drowns him, so he wouldn't have the claw. He didn't have the claw in the flashback either.
But then, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, they go. Eventually, it goes back to the hospital, and apparently the little dream illusions he creates can't be seen by anyone but the people who are being attacked. And so
Yeah, basically people are getting killed by their dreams in reality, and only they can see them, but they're still dying from them, and
And you get a scene of a reporter getting raped by invisible forces, which is just why.
And pretty fucked up,
When this stuff first starts happening, it's like a little while before they explain it. It's just like, and it's confusing
it just happens.
as hell.
Yeah, because all the characters are like, what the hell's going on? And that's what you're saying. Why is this happening? What is he doing exactly?
Mm-hmm. And that little child version of Jason is still around.
Yeah, he comes out with him for a brief moment, because this script does one of the worst things with Jason, is that they try to make him a sympathetic character.
Yes.
I mean, they literally try to make him a good guy, even though they still say he did all these murders.
Yep, there is that. And then, okay, it's also said again that Springwood is 8 miles away from Crystal Lake.
Yeah.
And it's revealed that Kruger tried to kill him in the canoe, and that he drowned. Kruger presumed he was dead, and then left. And then he didn't die. He washed ashore, and then now he's filled with murderous rage, and that's why he's killing everybody, thinking he's killing Freddy.
Yeah, because he's constantly looking for the guy who tried to kill him, and
which all that reminds me is that reminds me of Halloween 5, where Michael suddenly has the rage inside him, which comes out of nowhere in the last few minutes of the movie. With Donald Pleasance.
Yeah.
You think killing her can quell the rage, Michael? Sorry for the crappy impression. And now it does this thing where they figured out, Freddy likes to kill teenagers, so he's going to go to the mall. And he goes to the mall in Springwood and just starts...
Oh, but not before stopping off at the highway.
Oh, which one was this?
Because there's a ridiculous scene where he's like on an overpass, and he causes everyone driving to hallucinate they're crashing, but really they've just stopped, but they've still crashed. So yeah, it's just a way. It's just really to show how powerful he is,
But no, he gets to the mall and he starts doing all of this dream illusion stuff, which. Yeah, no way they would have gotten the effects budget for any of that.
Well, it's funny you say that, because they wouldn't have got the effects budget, but I honestly don't think they would have allowed it, because there are several, and I mean like at least 3 or 4 times, where children are brutally murdered on screen. And there was no way they would accept that. No way they would have done that.
Mm-hmm. And then, so they're at the mall, Freddy's doing the Hellraiser 3 thing and just slaughtering people. And Ruby's alcoholic doctor friend gets killed by a woman that has tits with teeth.
Yeah, it comes out of nowhere because, well, the doctor has found a way to inject them with a drug that stops them from dreaming, so his hallucination powers doesn't work. But then it just stops working for him. Yeah. And he dies by the tip mouths. Mm-hmm. It was weird.
And it's confirmed that Freddy is still immortal in the real world, so he still has a major disadvantage, even with his powers. Yeah. So what? I don't know.
Making it even less make sense for why he would want to do that.
Ruby follows them into a movie theater, and there is a cardboard standee of, I forget what the name of it was, but it's It's set in the future and he's cybernetic, so the script predicted Jason X.
Yeah, pretty much word for word, it's exactly what Jason X looks like in that movie.
Uber Jason.
Except for the weird mechanical machete thing that has different blades on it.
I forgot about that, actually.
Yeah.
And then, okay.
But yeah, it is just Jason X. It's really creepy how they managed to predict that.
That was weird.
Even if it wasn't.
And then, okay, they finally get to the fight, but most of it is Jason fighting Freddy's illusions, and it doesn't really deliver much in terms of a fight. And then...
No, there isn't actually a fight. It's more of an overcoming of each other's abilities.
Freddy stops in the middle and basically does the Darth Vader, join me and we can rule the galaxy.
Yeah, it's that cheesy. Whereas with Star Wars it kind of works, but here it's like, are you trying to reference Star Wars? Is this a joke? I can't tell.
It's really difficult to tell.
I want to laugh, but I don't know if I should. Yeah. It's just bad writing.
It's really bad. And then, okay, Freddy decides he's fucked. And then he tries to use Jason as a portal to get back to the dream world, but then, as he's
as he's halfway through, Jason gets injected with the drugs, which stops him dreaming, which stops Freddy halfway inside his body.
So they're like a weird half and half kind of thing.
Yeah, they're just referred to as a Jason Freddy or a Freddy Jason in the script, aren't they?
Not a very good fight, people.
No, that's literally it. Because after that, it's like, I can't remember what happens, but that's right.
They blow up.
Yeah, because Freddy's still flailing about, and Jason just walks into a camping store. Oh, camping! Yep. Do you get that? And he just picks up a propane tank and blows them both up. It's just dull.
It's kind of cool that they blow up, and Jason actually speaks.
Oh Christ! Yeah, I hated that.
He says,
"Oh my God," because people got pissed at the other films when they had Jason grunting.
Really?
So can you imagine the absolute shitstorm that would have happened if they heard him speak?
Which one was this that they got pissed off at the grunting?
It might have been Jason X, but I distinctly remember people complaining of the fact that they could hear him grunt.
But then he just looks at Ruby and tells her to get out of the burning shopping mall.
Yeah. And that's literally it.
But yeah, she leaves, and then they blow up, and then blah de blah.
Yeah. There's not much of a conclusion, it just kind of ends there, really.
She's like really happy that her client is a free man.
Oh yeah, that's right, and there's like a little bit at the end, because when she was at his house, it specifically shows a picture of Jason as a child, and he looks all creepy, and he's not smiling. But at the end, the camera shows the same picture, and he's now smiling and happy.
Yeah.
And it's like, yay, the massive, the crazy serial killer is now happy. Why is this a good thing?
Because he is guilty. He is killing people.
Yeah. Again, it's this trying to make him a good guy for no discernible reason.
That's basically what happens, and then they demolish the house in the end. That script was bad. Yeah. I think it was better than the Abernathy script, just a little bit.
Well, I wouldn't say it was better or worse. I would just say it was different. It was bad, just in a different way.
But it wasn't as annoying on every single page. It was still bad.
It was honestly, it was a lot more boring to me. Because I think it was a lot down to is that it got bogged down in a lot of the technical stuff. Like, they went way too much into detail about the legal system on trying to get this guy off, and figuring out ways that he's actually not guilty through insanity and all this stuff. Way too much detail on that, and that's definitely got to be more doing that.
And so you have that, and it's just like, okay, I appreciate the ambition, but it doesn't need to be this complicated.
No, it's not this complicated. Stop making this concept so ridiculous. Oh boy,
is that not the last time it happens? But
God.
But okay, just to talk a little bit about what happened in between scripts here is that This was 1995, and they wrote this, and what killed this version of it was the fact that New Nightmare was a meta movie and it didn't do very well. So that killed off this idea, and then, yeah, a whole bunch of other writers came in, and apparently the whole Freddy cult was still hanging around as an idea, including, there were even versions where they were called the Fred Heads.
Oh, and yeah, I remember that.
There's like versions of it where the cult leader was just as important as Jason or Freddy and got even more screen time. But yeah, so just shit ideas just kept coming around, and eventually we got more scripts. Alright, now this third script that we're looking at was also one that was written in 1995, and it's written by a guy whose name is Peter Briggs, and he has a rather interesting history as a writer in that he kind of got a lot of, I guess you'd say, momentum of a sort in Hollywood because he wrote a spec script based on the first Aliens vs. Predator comic, which the then head of 20th Century Fox really, really liked, but that went nowhere for a variety of reasons, and I haven't read it yet. I will for a future episode, but I understand it's much, much better than what we ultimately got. And he wrote that, and he has like two writing credits on IMDb, one of which is something about a TV show called Thunderbirds Are Go. He wrote one. Oh yeah. He wrote one episode, which that was just last year. Wow. And he has an acting credit on something called Wallander.
That sounds familiar, but I think it's like a really crappy, like Lifetime.
Is it like a
TV show
or whatever? He played a photographer. He doesn't get a name. And
just a photographer.
And he gets a screen story credit for the first Hellboy. Now, I read an interview with him where he mentioned that a lot of things, like structurally speaking, were his in the final movie, but basically what we got was very Del Toro, and he even admits that. So,
yeah.
So his...
Wasn't he linked with Hellraiser 4 at one point?
Peter Briggs? No, you're thinking of Peter Atkins. Who wrote 2 and 3 as well.
That's right,
Yeah. So yeah, it's Peter Briggs, and he was one of the writers who was tapped for this script because everybody was getting a shot at it. Literally everybody, even if they just walked into somebody's office at the time.
Yeah, if you can hold a pen, write the
Hell, I could have written a better script on the bar napkin than some of these, but...
Yeah.
Okay, so his script. How do we even begin to summarize this thing? Do you want to start, or should I start?
Well, I think I'd like to start because it's like, when you think of a Freddy Krueger movie or a Jason movie, the last thing you think is starting in the 17th century Italy. And that's where this one begins.
Yes, it does.
And it's like, what the hell is going on? It's like a completely different movie.
It's basically Season of the Witch with Nicolas Cage.
It really is.
It's two witch hunters and a religious figure. Was it Pontiff? Was that the name they used? One of the titles they used, but his name was Manfredini.
That's it.
Harry Manfredini, the composer for the Friday the 13th movies. But I forget the title they used for him. So it's those three, and the two witch hunters have two daggers, which are like the daggers from Jason Goes to Hell, which is the dagger of the dead from Evil Dead, because they had the props.
Yeah.
And they go into this castle in Italy to find this necromancer, and they end up fighting a demon and sending it back to hell, but, like, I believe the two witch hunters die.
I don't think they do,
One of them died, I think.
One of them dies, but at the very end, because something to do with the necromancer having knowledge of Freddy and Jason, because he's got pictures and stuff all around the building.
One of them survives. He finds like a manuscript page which has illustrations of the glove and the hockey mask.
Yeah, and he just says, burn it all, in a hope to sort of like stop whatever this is supposed to be. And we still don't know what it's supposed to be.
You hear the Jump Rope girls in the background singing in Italian. And
except
instead of saying Freddy, they say Thanos. Which, okay, we'll make the obvious joke a little bit later. Yeah, it's setting up that there's something else behind Freddy and Jason, some big supernatural thing. Anyways, cut to the then near future of 1999 in the town called Bethlehem, which the script said both West Virginia and Virginia at several times, so I don't know which one they meant.
Yeah, there are a few annoying mistakes like that, where it doesn't keep track of itself. which I found annoying.
Well, that happens a lot. Like, that's the kind of thing that I think would get, pounded out in, like, a later draft. But, of course, this, like every other one of these scripts, never moved on to a second draft. And so it's basically in this town called Bethlehem, you have Stephen and Jessica and their baby Stephanie, who's now a little girl from Jason Goes to Hell. They've moved there and opened, like, an auto shop. And Alice and her kid from the Dream Child, Nightmare 5, because they skipped over Freddy's Dead, because, you kind of have to.
Although, weirdly, it does reference a new Nightmare.
Yeah, there is a weird new Nightmare reference that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's kind of odd how they just throw that in there, as if it's, like,
yeah, it's like it literally splices in the clip of Wes Craven explaining.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so basically, as they're driving home from New Jersey somewhere, and they break down just outside Bethlehem. And so Steven with his wrecker comes to get them, and he can't find them a hotel anywhere, so end up staying at their house.
Yeah. Although, was this before or after where Alice shows up in a weird hell dimension? She had a dream in the hell dimension.
She had a dream.
That's
she had
right.
almost fallen asleep at the wheel, where she's in the hell dimension, and she sees what's Freddy, but not quite Freddy.
Yeah, it's not really.
We'll talk
explained.
about that in a moment. But roughly at the same time as this is happening, there's two FBI agents. One is named Jack Resner, and the other one is named Jack Cobain. Ha ha ha. They're investigating this weird New Agey cult. It's like a satanic cult that worships this Thanos thing, which is working out of a New Age bookstore in Bethlehem, which has a turret for some reason.
Yeah, that was so random. As if it's like trying to call back to the castle from the very beginning, but why?
And so basically the night that all this stuff starts converging is that Resner is outside the bookshop keeping tabs, and they do a sacrifice inside to summon up Thanos, but instead Jason gets freed from hell and kills the shit out of everybody there, which was kind of badass for Jason.
Yeah, it's quite an extended scene where he just go through all the cultists and just kills them all.
So yeah, Jason in this script is not the good guy, thank God. Yeah.
For once. It's still not proper Jason in my opinion, but we'll get to that.
Hell Jason. Only he doesn't have a giant penis jump out of his chest and then jump into people's mouths and possess them.
Wow, I really missed a lot by not seeing that film.
Yes, you find out that Jason's heart is like this weird phallic thing that like crawls around and jumps into people's mouths.
Right.
No, it was not. It was not directed by the Japanese.
I was going to say.
And I should mention it's December of 1999 because it's doing the new Millennium Apocalypse thing, which so doesn't date the script.
Yes, and they do mention throughout how the stars are going out, like a Doctor Who episode.
There was a Doctor Who episode where that happened?
Yeah, it was a big thing about the more recent series. But obviously you don't know what I'm talking about. No, I don't.
I have no idea what you're talking. And, okay, I actually made a mistake. Manfredini is not the one from the beginning. Manfredini is the one who's on the plane, and he's a Vatican agent who is flying in. We don't know why, and Cobain's going to go pick him up. And he falls asleep, and he gets attacked by Freddy, which it's honestly not that bad of a dream sequence. That's where we get the random spliced-in footage of New Nightmare. But he gets sneaked up from behind by something that's Freddy, but bigger. Ooh. Yeah. This is building up to something really stupid, by the way. And
yeah, it really is.
And so he ends up dead, and Cobain uncovers that he was going to deliver this information to both Alice and the Freemans. He was going to
Because I don't know how he knew that.
I don't know. You just made me think that. I don't know either.
Because there's no reason why the Vatican, of all things, would know about what happened with Alice in The Dream Child and the end of frickin' Friday the 13th. It's a flimsy justification to give them a way of killing the bad guys. And it's very badly written because there's no explanation for it. It's also a very flimsy
reason to get the agents connected with the recurring characters.
Exactly,
and so, that's the setup, basically. And that took forever to explain because the script is so weird.
Yeah.
Do we want to just describe this thing on the whole?
Well, you go first.
Okay, I like the fact that we have returning characters from the other movies. Now, granted, if I had to make if it was my preference, I would have brought Tommy Jarvis back from the Friday the 13th movies.
Yeah, that's one of the few things I was saying to myself is why don't they bring him back? Because that would have made much more sense.
It's not like he doesn't have a history of being played by a different actor every time. So I guess maybe maybe Peter Briggs liked Jason Goes to Hell, because I mean, I like Jason Goes to Hell, and yeah, it does directly lead into Freddy versus Jason.
Yeah, it's almost like he watched that one the most and took everything from that.
So yeah, there is that. I guess he just watched the most recent ones, which is a change from, oh, I'm going to watch the first one and just assume shit from there, or, oh, I'm just going to watch Freddy's Dead, which I guess I'm glad he didn't watch that.
Yeah.
So yeah, this script, it's interesting. I'll give it that much. But it's just, it has kind of like enough of a crazy whacked out idea that I might have enjoyed it on its own merits, if it wasn't for the fact that it quickly devolves into just people tooling around in this town.
Yeah, and then it becomes like this extended running around this sort of fun house of death in hell.
Yes, that's the final act. But like the first two acts, aside from like stuff, like I kind of like the kill scenes here, but so little happens besides that. It literally is just they hang around in Steven's house.
It is. There's like nothing, kill, and then more nothing.
So yeah.
There's nothing to, to hold them together.
I could have gotten into this whole, there's this big apocalyptic event going on. Because it's like two of the biggest titans of horror at that time coming together. But I mean...
I guess. I'm not really a fan of it, personally. But at the same time,
it's like, they're just slasher characters. This ain't exactly Batman versus Superman, if you get my drift.
Yeah, exactly. They're nothing... I mean, the whole point with, like, Jason and Freddy, in my opinion anyway, is that it's happening in small towns. That was always kind of the point. If it was this big catastrophic event, it would have kind of diminished it, in my opinion.
But I mean,
which is why I didn't like how with Freddy's character it just got more and more ridiculous over time, because that was pretty much the exact same reason why I didn't like that.
What they were doing with Freddy either. Now maybe if they made the whole apocalypse thing like the backdrop to what Freddy and Jason were doing and just kept it implied mainly.
Yeah, if it was implied, I would have liked it
where the script goes with this, it just doesn't work. And I guess we can talk about the depictions of the characters now. Jason, I'll give this script this. Jason is a complete monster here who will just kill you and just not think twice about it. And I like that, because after seeing him as basically the good guy in the last two scripts, it was quite refreshing. Now, what they end up doing with him later on, where he's just a pawn of greater forces, or a pawn of a pawn, as it turns out to be, was just absolutely stupid. We'll talk about that as we go on.
But yeah, the actual initial design, for the most part, because they were trying to step it up a bit, and they kind of did it okay. I didn't like the fact that they just got rid of his machete and gave him this weird Aztec sacrificial dagger.
Machete. Which I'm pretty sure they didn't have machetes in Aztec times.
No,
I'm pretty sure they didn't even have metalworks. Because they
exactly.
Their weapon of choice was like an obsidian axe or something. Right?
Yeah, it would have been like flint. And
obsidian. And they didn't even have metal, which is partly why the Spaniards kicked their asses.
Exactly, yeah. And they also give Jason they chrome his mask for some bizarre reason.
Because they're anticipating Jason X once again.
Exactly. What is with these things referencing Jason X?
And not only
it's
that,
crazy.
But Jason is like melting throughout the script.
Yeah, throughout it's just his mask sort of like degrades and he starts decomposing. Which honestly, I kind of like that idea. That he was only on our plane for like a certain amount of time.
I don't remember why.
It kind of made it a bit more interesting.
I can't remember why for the life of me that was happening though.
Because it's actually never explained.
Okay, I figured that was the case.
There's no reason for it whatsoever.
There's that, and then we can get to Freddy, who is barely in the script. Like hardly at all until the third act. And then when he does show up, he's not Freddy. He's this weird giant demon thing who chases them through hell, and he has like sickles for hands.
Yeah, just massive claws. Basically, he's kind of like the new Nightmare Freddy, but with the personality of the movie Freddy.
Only not nearly as smart or as interesting as New Nightmare Freddy was.
No, he doesn't even make a single wisecrack, if I remember correctly. It's just vague insults that are not even clever.
And I just don't feel like you really need to give a newer, bigger Freddy.
No. I mean, I'm sure he was intimidating enough.
He is.
You don't need to make this crap up.
He doesn't need to be bigger because he's already, like, insanely powerful. And if hell is connected to the dream world or whatever, the same way Hellblazer has heaven connected to computers, I guess this counts as him being in his element and he can just attack you anyways.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, he is essentially a god. Why does he need to be bigger? How does that change anything?
It doesn't change anything at all. It's just an excuse to up the ante. Now, they fight in this script for about 10 seconds.
Yeah, it's
and then the rest of the characters run away. Yeah, and then okay. I can say, well, I didn't mind seeing the characters from Jason Goes to Hell returning in this. I thought it sucked that they killed off Steven just kind of offhand.
Yeah, they just kill him for no real reason. He doesn't do anything. It doesn't further the plot in any way.
He gets killed by
dies,
Jason,
and it's pathetic. No, he gets put on that sacrifice thing.
Yeah. He gets sacrificed, and that's how Jason... Because you find out that Jason is really on the mission to bring their kids back to hell. Yeah,
again, it's never really explained why or what that would do.
He sacrifices Steven with the machete, which that kind of undoes, because I know you haven't seen Jason Goes to Hell, but the whole point of it is that in Jason Goes to Hell is that him and his wife, they're not together in that. They hadn't been married yet, but she has his kid, and he's trying to, he's trying to have some sort of relationship with his daughter, and then ultimately the whole Jason thing brings them together. So this just kind of undoes that, like that.
Yeah, it's kind of wasted time,
like,
really.
Wow, because I actually kind of liked him. He was a screw up, but he was a likable guy at the same time.
Right.
And it was a pretty. I like those characters, and they kind of get really screwed over here.
Yeah, they really do. The Alice and the sort of the nightmare characters come out much better.
Because she was a badass in those movies. She gets to be a badass here because she crushes Jason with a car. Yeah, she actually succeeds in a fight against Jason. That was awesome.
Yeah, it was a good and plausible fight, which I think is the important part.
Now, I didn't mind the FBI agents.
Yeah, they were a bit non-essential, though.
They were just kind of there to move the plot around and to give us the ending, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
And this ties into another thing about the scripts is that their names. Why are they Reznor and Cobain?
Yeah, there's a lot of references in this, and some of them don't make any sense. They're just there to be references. Some of them I didn't mind. Like
I kind of like the one where where one of them rattles off like the most wanted wackos or whatever, and there's a few real names and mixed in are like Myers and Horace Pinkner from Shocker. See, that's a decent enough reference, because that's the kind of thing where it makes sense for them to be talking about that in dialogue.
Yeah, it's clever and it's subtle, and it's like if you know about it, you'll notice it.
But once they get to hell, it turns into an onslaught of just horror movie reference after horror movie reference. Like there's a bit where I believe it's Alice who opens like one of the doorways in hell, and a bunch of weapons fly out, and Freddy gets pegged in the forehead with the flying ball from Phantasm.
Yes. For no reason, it just hits him, and then it's just thrown away. And then there's the Leatherface bit, which is just it's just a corpse of Leatherface just in hell, and it's mentioned, and then nothing happens with it. Alice picks up his chainsaw. I assume it's his chainsaw. It doesn't actually mention whose chainsaw it is, but I just assume. And it immediately breaks in half, and she just hits Freddy in the face with the handle, and then drops it.
It's a massive fuck you to the Leatherface fans.
Yeah, that's one of the things. I was like, holy crap, you really don't give a shit about that series.
Don't. And honestly, the whole Phantasm Ball thing, even though this was like 20 years ago, it feels like a really early fuck you to Angus Scrimm.
Well, but honestly though, when it comes to Phantasm, it's one of the least known.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things that you'll always hear about on the internet, but you'll probably find people who have seen the first one, but people who have seen all of them, not likely.
Yeah, it's very unlikely.
Yeah, I mean, I've only seen the first one. I've seen the fourth one. I forgot about that for a second. Where you...
Right. I just know about the series.
I've seen the first one, and I've seen the fourth one where you see the tall man's origin story, but that's it. And, okay. Right. And then, as you go on through this hell thing, basically, they get separated. For whatever reason, Cobain decides to jump into a picture of like the past or something.
Well, they're constantly being chased by a swirling vortex that's just fucking everything up.
That's supposed to be the end of the universe.
Yeah, that's what's causing them to run through hell. And they get to the end where, from what I remember, it's like Freddy turns to Satan, or Thanos. It gives both names, and he says, "Look, I brought you these." And then Thanos said, "Thanks, screw you."
Well, before that, we get the should we talk about the Freddy and Jason connection? I'll cover this one in detail. You basically get a flashback where you see Jason in his room wearing his hockey mask, which he shouldn't have because he didn't get the hockey mask until he killed that Seth Rogen lookalike in part 3. And then, and basically he's listening to the parents downstairs, and Elias and Pamela Voorhees are talking to characters from the Elm Street series, including John Saxon and his wife, and I believe the mother from part 3, and a few others. And it turns out that Jason was originally an Elm Street kid, and that
Alice actually says those exact words
because the Elm Street kid is a phrase that gets brought up over and over in the sequels. And it turns out that he was one of the Elm Street kids, and his parents were two of the ones who burned Freddy, and that Jason was one of the kills he did in revenge for that, because they left Springwood and then went to their summer home or whatever it was, their vacation home at Crystal Lake.
Oh, that's right. Because there's a scene where Pamela Voorhees is going to burn Freddy, and just before she says, we'll go to camp after this, and it's like really signposted.
And basically, what happened is that Freddy drowned Jason, which this shouldn't be the case because Jason didn't fucking drown.
Yeah, they just didn't care.
And apparently what he did is he created Jason as a pawn because he got his powers from Thanos to collect souls for him, and he created Jason to collect even more souls. So Jason's a pawn of a pawn, which is insulting as hell to a Friday the 13th fan.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, if you're a Friday the 13th fan, fuck you. None of your series actually matters because it's all Freddy Krueger. I'm glad you're welcome.
Doesn't matter because it's all Thanos. So I guess Thanos needs these souls because I guess he figures if Freddy and Jason kill enough people, he'll finally be able to get into Death's pants. I don't know. I think you'll find out that Deadpool already got there.
Yes.
Which this guy, people complain about Thanos in the Marvel movies not doing anything. He is a master villain compared to this guy because he basically just tells Jason and Freddy to go fuck themselves and then just leaves them to their own devices.
Yeah, they're standing right in front of him, and he says, "Okay, thank you. Now bugger off." And then they say,
and then they jump on them and they stab them with the ritual daggers.
Yeah, basically, Freddy and Jason kill Satan.
Which is kind of awesome when you say it like that.
Yeah.
So okay, Alice, Stephanie, and or Alice, Jessica, and the two kids end up back on Earth, and everything's fine. But then we find out that Cobain went back into the past. Somehow, and he's in the Springwood police station right as Freddy was about to, they're going to go arrest Freddy, but the search warrant got screwed up and not signed. So he fakes the judge's signature and signs it because it was set up that he was a great forger.
Yeah, they set that up at the very beginning that he could forge signatures.
And so because of his actions, Freddy is never burned. So he never comes into contact with Thanos, and then because of that, Jason is never created. Which I question the necessity for that, because, I would be fine enough, I guess, with that, if it had been established that Thanos wins, so that he goes back in time and then makes us that Thanos is screwed, but you basically just set it up so that all these people's lives have been undone. You dickhead.
Yeah, and plus the fact that, you've got douchebags like young Kevin Bacon. Who doesn't
Bacon
die?
Wasn't that big of a douchebag.
Well, they were all supposed to be like really, teenage pot smoking, nothing characters really.
They were normal enough people in that, aside from like the one guy who puts on like the Indian headdress.
Yeah, that the comic relief.
He dies first, so.
Yes, which is great. But they do get a lot more douchey as the series goes on.
And also you have Bernie from Weekend at Bernie's in Part 7, who is an asshole. And then Jason kills him with a weed whacker, I think. But unfortunately, the death scene kind of sucks because it got edited to death. So, okay, that's the Peter Briggs script. Not a heck of a lot to say about, because obviously there's not a lot going on in it.
Yeah, the only thing, what I would sum it up as is incredibly referential, very high on detail and concept, but the execution is flawed.
That's a great description. Now, of course, this eventually got scrapped as well, and as I said before, 17 scripts, so there was probably a whole lot of them getting made in this time. And the Freddy cult idea stuck around, and apparently one of them involved Jason driving a Subaru at some point. Which, why specifically a Subaru? I
Product
guess
placement.
Maybe? Where they went, okay, he's driving an ambulance in this one script, we can put in scene where he's driving a trendy car. But then...
Yeah. Well, you know, when you want to sell a Subaru, you definitely want to have a child murder in the scene.
But then, okay, Jason driving a Subaru, whatever. Okay, but in between this Peter Briggs script and when this next script happened, something else happened that changed slasher movies, maybe for the worse, and that was Scream. Scream happened, and then everybody had to be smug and meta. Yeah,
everyone had to be all-knowing and clever and annoying as hell.
I, for one, actually liked the first Scream. I never really bothered with the sequels, but I do think the first Scream movie is overrated and that I don't think it's the greatest thing ever made. But I think it's a perfectly serviceable slasher movie I can throw on and have a good time with. But, okay, we get... But what I hate about it is that we got a lot of shit like this.
Yes.
This fucking script. Do you want to summarize this one? Because I don't even want to think about it.
Yeah, because I went into this not knowing anything about what I was getting into, and I was completely floored by how just god-awful it is. Firstly, I mean, the biggest thing to say about it is that Freddy really isn't in it.
That's the biggest thing to say about it?
Well, for me anyway, because I'm a Nightmare on Elm Street fan.
Oh, there was a whole lot of other things that stuck out to me other than that.
Yeah, well, yeah.
You want to give the plot setup?
I think you should, because you're more annoyed with it.
Okay, I didn't want to do it, but I'll do it. Okay, it starts off with a teenage girl named Lizzie and her boyfriend Jason. She gets attacked in their house one night by what appears to be Freddy. But it turns out that instead it's some psycho stalker named Dominic Necros dressed up as Freddy, and shock of all shocks, Freddy and Jason are both just movie characters in this universe.
Well, they mention that Jason is a movie character, but they never actually go out of their way to mention that Freddy's a character.
They say it a lot from what I remember. They say, the movies, really? They say it for both.
Because I remember the Jason stuff, not so much the Freddy stuff. Maybe I missed
they do
something
say it towards the beginning that it's movies. But they're both movie characters, and so she's traumatized, and then she starts having dreams about how she's getting chased by Freddy, and she calls out for her boyfriend Jason, because haha, clever. And then she's at a lake, and the actual Jason comes out of the lake and fights Freddy. And so her and their douchebag friends decide that they're going to get together and go to this campground that they've discovered. Or no, they're going out to a lake house and they discover the abandoned campground to get away.
That's right, yeah, because they stop at the lake before getting there and they just thought, let's just stay here instead.
And to stay there for the night, and then you get this thing about how Jason maybe is based on a true story, maybe isn't. And they find a mask, they find a hockey mask and an axe in the hut. And then she has these drugs which are supposed to help her with her dreams, which supposedly if you take them, people have said that they could allegedly share their dreams. And so...
Yeah, it's said that that's a side effect, which is
and
so
then
weird.
One of the friends takes some of the pills and then spikes their drinks with them. So they have...
Yeah, which I'm pretty sure is like a
Yes, and then they're supposed to the idea is that you're not supposed to know what's really real while this whole thing is going on, and then they find out that Necros has escaped. And then, I'm going to go that far with the setup. But, okay, this was written by two guys called Jonathan Eibel and Glenn Berger. Let me look at their IMDb page. They have done a ton of TV, an episode of The George Carlin Show, 2 episodes of something called Platypus Man, 2 episodes of Can't Hurry Love. They did additional writing on a video game called Blazing Dragons. They were Mad TV writers. They wrote 11 episodes of King of the Hill. Oh, during its good period. Oh. Well, okay.
As the duo as well.
Actually, let me check the other guy's page real quick. But pretty much everything they've written has been as a duo. Yeah, they started. Yeah, they've done all of this stuff together. But they did another. Forget the TV stuff. They wrote the screenplay for Kung Fu Panda, which is good.
That's
Monsters
a surprise.
vs. Aliens, which I didn't mind. Alvin and the Chipmunks, The Squeakquel. So they didn't even write the kind of okay adaptation that the first one was. They did. Okay, Kung Fu Panda 2, which I liked aside from the last 5 seconds. Alvin and the Chipmunks, Chipwrecked. The screenplay for the SpongeBob movie, Sponge Out of Water, which I heard that wasn't bad, surprisingly.
But I'm not seeing a lot of horror movies.
I'm seeing a lot of comedy. They've written Kung Fu Panda 3, something called Wishlist, something called Trolls, and something they got a story credit on something called Monster Trucks.
Right.
So yeah.
So no horror.
They've written some decent stuff, but they also wrote the Alvin and the Chipmunks sequels, although apparently they didn't write 4, which was a movie that got sacrificed on the altar of The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Which unfortunately the Hateful Eight fell into that category as well, But so yeah, these guys are so not qualified to write a horror movie.
Yeah, I can see that.
Can we just talk about... I'm going to start talking about this, and then you can continue after I'm done with this bit. From the first page of this script, from where it describes these characters as... Here, let me read the description of these characters. Lizzie is described as beautiful and a girl next door who sometimes likes to dress like a tramp kind of way. And Jason is described as a good-looking 17-year-old wearing a high school football jersey, and he drinks beer. So he's flat, and she's described in this hipster way where it was not long into this script where I was just thinking this whole time, if this script were a person, I would punch it in the face because it is so annoying.
It really is. I mean, that's not a really good description anyway, because all it says is she's sexy, but she's also the girl next door, but she's also a tramp. There's no commitment to that description whatsoever.
But I could say for her, she wasn't annoying, and he wasn't annoying. They were just bland. Every other character in this script, though.
Christ.
The friends and their girlfriends were just yak 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 yak.
Well, it's like you said about Scream. It's like basically take all the most annoying characters from Scream, and there you go.
So Shaggy.
Yeah, exactly. Without any of the actual killer.
I will say I like Jamie Kennedy, but yeah, Shaggy was kind of obnoxious in that movie.
Yes.
He made for a good Shaggy, though.
That's debatable.
That's one thing I'll say about that Scooby-Doo movie is that I thought that it got the casting reasonably okay. But every single... I swear, like, after her assault, there's a scene where they come over to cheer her up, and they're just... I swear this goes on forever, where they're in the backyard next to her pool, just talking about horror movies and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And at least 2 of them end up falling into the pool at one point, and I'm just like, dude, will these people ever shut up? And they can't even get Jason right, because once again, they say he drowned as a kid and came back for revenge, which isn't what he fucking came back for.
Yeah, no one seemed to have got that right in these scripts. They all seem to have just
The only
forgotten.
revenge Jason ever wanted to take was in part 2, where he followed Alice to her house and then killed her because she chopped his mom's head off, which that makes sense. Well, it doesn't make sense that he almost drowned as a kid and then didn't go home. He just wandered around in the woods. I mean, I know he was supposed to be mentally retarded and all that, but he was smart enough to survive in the woods. What? I don't know. But, so yeah, you get that scene where they're just going on and on and on and on and on and on and on.
Well, it's that scene from Scream just added to an entire movie. You know that scene where at the very beginning of Scream where they're talking about horror movies? It's the exact same thing.
It's not only that felt shorter than this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's definitely a lot longer and it's a lot more redundant because they just keep saying the same shit over and over, and it's not even interesting.
They confused 2 different series at one point as well. Like they say, Jason, you mean that guy from Halloween? And they're like, no, which Funny, Tyler Mane actually told a story when Rob Zombie gave him the call for Halloween. He said, how would you like to play Michael Myers? And Tyler Mane said, I don't know if I want to wear a hockey mask the whole time. And Rob Zombie's response was, wrong movie, dumbass.
that deserved a dumbass insult.
Okay, like we said about Freddy not being in this very much, he is instead replaced for most of this script by a Freddy wannabe named Dominic Necros. Necros. Yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't even sound like a real name.
No, it's just, why? Why does he have to have a quote-unquote spooky name?
He's not a supervillain. This isn't Sinestro, although I wouldn't have been surprised if he pulled out a yellow ring.
Yeah. But I mean, like the name Freddy Krueger at the time wasn't synonymous with
it wasn't.
Spooky, you know? It became spooky through the movie, so it's kind of the exact opposite of what that did.
Michael Myers was not a scary name before Michael Myers. It's not a scary name now, thanks to Austin Powers.
Yeah, and Jason Voorhees. That's not a scary name. Exactly. So yeah, it's the exact opposite of what these movies actually did, which was make something that sounded kind of silly, let's be honest, and made it scary.
Although Voorhees is a real name.
Oh yeah, I know that they're real names, but they don't sound like
not at a first glance or
scary.
anything.
Yeah.
And, and okay, this whole thing where they're tripping out on drugs and they don't know what's real and what's a dream.
Which they do that once, and they never do it again.
Where basically Necros escapes somehow and finds them somehow. And so what happens is that Jason is following Lizzie around, boyfriend Jason, and he's got the hockey mask on, kind of. And then Necros finds them, and what I thought was going to happen is that Necros was going to show up and they were going to trip out and think he was Freddy. And because boyfriend Jason has the hockey mask, they were going to think he was Voorhees. And there was going to be some weird ending where they come off the drugs and both of them are now dead. But no, that's not what happens. What happens is that Necros kills Jason and rips out his heart, and then throws it in the lake, where it magically lands inside the skeleton's chest cavity.
Which is supposed to be the real-life version of Jason.
Which the movies were apparently based on a true story, but that guy said he was just joking. But they are a true story. That's stupid, and that's meta that doesn't work. And so Jason, who is described as this big hulking thing, shows up. And one of the dumbasses is wearing a Freddy Krueger mask because he's a completely insensitive moron. And so he sees Freddy and then kills him.
Because he has this murderous rage whenever he sees Freddy's face, isn't it? They don't explain that until later,
but basically you find out is that Freddy was at the camp, even though Freddy's not real. And then because they do the whole thing where he's going to the camp kids and going let's play the nightmare game, and he finds Jason in the closet, and I think the implication is that he molests Jason. Yeah,
well, it's the exact same story from the other two scripts.
Other three scripts.
Yeah.
Almost. But then then drowned him. The reason why Jason kills is because he sees everybody as Freddy, which is retarded.
Yeah, which again makes Freddy the focus, which I think is a big, fuck you to Friday the 13th fans.
Which is weird that he's the focus, considering he's not in this damn thing. And
I know, and it's maintained throughout that they are not real characters.
And so you don't know what's real and what's not. And then there's this weird bit where one of the girls is high and she dreams about about being outside and seeing Necros kill boyfriend Jason. And then she wakes up back in the cabin.
And she stops him. She throws something at Necros, and which distracts him and allows the Lizzie to get away. And then she wakes up in the cabin because that was a dream, but it really happened, but it really didn't. It's really confusing and makes no sense.
Yes. And then Jason kills the one guy, and then the other guy ends up back at the cabin. And I actually found the character somewhat tolerable at this point, because he was just completely crazy.
Yeah, because he was convinced he was in a dream.
That was actually pretty neat, and I believe that was Todd, right? And I have to point out that he's mentioned as being Jason's best friend, and they're always mentioned in this order: Jason and Todd. So all I'm thinking of is the second Robin, who was killed by the Joker and then came back as the Red Hood for some reason. Because Superman punched the universe.
It's a weird choice. It's a very weird choice. Oh,
but
yeah.
I'm convinced that at least was a coincidence in this thing.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But, yeah, you have that, and then because the guy is thinking it's a dream, does he start injecting them again?
No, it's Necros. He basically says to Lizzie that, I had my chance to kill you, now it's Freddy's chance.
And then Freddy shows up, and that's where we get the explanation for the Freddy and Jason connection, right?
Yeah, because he injects something along the lines of Necros has got Lizzie. He's going to inject her so she's unconscious. But Jason shows up, who gets stuck in the neck by the needle.
Yeah, that's right.
That
and then
Necros
he rips
has.
the needle out and then injects her.
Yeah, but they both fall unconscious and they share a dream.
All the other characters die besides Lizzie at some point, right?
Pretty much, eventually, yeah.
Barney and Beth and Sam's the one who dies at first, and then Todd gets killed by Necros as soon as he shows up. And so then, what the hell happened to Necros again?
He just basically disappears for the majority of the film because what happens is they're in the dream. Lizzie and Jason are in the dream. Jason's obviously kid Jason again in his dream. We find out all about Freddy. It's never really explained. And then when they come out, Lizzie tries to tell the others that they need his help because he's being killed by Freddy in the dream. So after he wakes up, though, he just kills them, and then they run off. So it amounts to nothing.
Yeah. And the Necros does die.
Oh, yeah, but that's later. Because he's literally just gone. He disappears. And then they run off from Jason to get to the car. It's Lizzie and Beth. And then as soon as they get in the car, Necros is in the car for some reason, and he kills Beth. And then, no, I think and then, oh, sorry, no, I'm completely it's Marnie, Beth, and Lizzie in the car. Jason kills Marnie by taking her out and then stabbing her against the side of the thing. Then Necros kill Beth. And then Lizzie drives the car into a tree, which kills Necros.
And then it's revealed that she had, it was set up earlier on that she had a gun with her. She doesn't think to use the gun on her mortal as anything stalker the whole time. She doesn't use it until she's confronted with Jason at the end. Yeah. And then they go into the dream thing again, because apparently Jason needs to fight Freddy in order for all this to end.
Yeah. She actually has this big speech where she says, I can help you kill him. And then she just injects herself, leaves her unconscious in front of Jason, and just assumes he's going to say, okay, I'm going to help you. And which he does. And then there's this big extended chase / fight scene with Freddy and Jason in this dream world and stuff. And of course, eventually they bring Freddy out of the dream world.
Cliffside. And honestly, the thing about this script is that it's terrible, but it has the best Freddy and Jason fight of all four.
Yeah, it does actually do that well.
Okay, this actually delivers on the Freddy versus Jason aspect of it.
But there are certain aspects of it that just irritate me. Yeah.
Okay, just go.
Well, the first thing that irritates me is that it just goes on and on and on and on. First they're fighting on top of the thing, then they fall off the cliff, then they're fighting at the bottom of the cliff, then Freddy beats Jason, but he doesn't beat Jason. Jason comes back up and bites. And it just keeps going, and it's so dull.
Yeah, it's
after
dull
a while
to read, because that's the kind of thing where you can just write on the page, they fight, and then they'll just fill that in, because if it's a good director, he'll just fill that in. It's like They Live, exactly. Where like there's like 4 pages of the script which are just said, fight continues.
Yeah.
With that amazing fight scene in the middle.
Exactly. Yeah.
But, okay, so the heart was what brought Jason back to life in this scenario. And Freddy rips it out, but Jason is still able to fight?
Oh, that's because he's sustained by the will of Lizzie.
God.
That's genuinely what it pretty much comes off as.
And then
that she wills him to continue to fight. It's so crap.
Yeah, but he shrinks back to his original size.
Yeah, because he was buffed up from Lizzie again. And then he delivers a semi-killing blow to Freddy.
Because Lizzie passes him his machete.
Yeah. And then she gets the machete again and uses it and pretty much mirrors what actually happened in the action film.
Yeah.
Where she just chops his head off, basically.
Uh-huh.
I think she chops his head off. I don't think it's
Well, it
it's
says
specified.
she throws him the machete. He turns to face her, and then with one burst of rage, Jason roars and plunges his big blade deep into Freddy's back, which sounds really, really homoerotic.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
It
like,
thrusts
okay,
straight through Freddy's chest and toward camera, so 3D shot. Jason lifts Freddy high into the air, skewered on his massive blade. It just gets worse. Freddy struggles, writhing in horrific pain. This is the prison rape version of Freddy vs. Jason. Jason's face.
Oh my god! You can't.
Jason's face distorts with anger as his eyes burn into Freddy. He opens his mouth, but he doesn't roar, he doesn't bellow, he doesn't howl. He finally speaks. Freddy's dead. Thunder and lightning. Lizzie watches, transfixes Freddy deliquesces, whatever the hell that word is, into a hideous, foul, bubbling, nightmarish gob. Freddy Krueger is no more.
I honestly would like to know what voice they'd have given Jason, because whatever they did, it would have pissed off the fans.
Michael Myers speaks at the end of Halloween 2.
Exactly.
Die!
Exactly. It just would have pissed everybody off. I don't know why they did that in that script.
I don't know. He doesn't roar either. I don't know what that's about.
No. He's supposed to be the silent killer. That was the whole point.
But then a huge bolt of lightning hits the dock, and then they both fall into the lake. And then she smiles, there's more thunder and lightning, and it cuts to black. So the whole crap with them not being real and the whole drug trip thing never pays off at all.
No. There's none of that. There's none of that. Was it a dream? Was it a thing? That's far too clever for this script.
And even that, it would still have been stupid, but at least it would have paid off.
Yeah, it would have actually made sense. But this script is like written by someone who's never written a script. At least it feels
also,
like that.
I should point out, looking at the script, they continually misspell Voorhees.
They do. They misspell a lot of things, and it's so irritating.
So yeah, this script, fuck it. Like Jason fucked Freddy at the end of the script. Yeah. I didn't even notice until just now reading that how ridiculous that got.
It really did. It was like a porno. It was just dreadful.
It was a rape fetish porno right there at the end. Just, dear God. So yeah.
So it actually does feel like an amateur slash fic.
That was fucking stupid.
That was definitely the worst of all of them, because it definitely had the least amount of any kind of passion. Like, at least some of them had an attempt at passion, you know? They were still god-awful, but they understood what they were doing and who they were making the film for.
There was a certain amount of effort on all three of those compared to this.
Yeah, this was just a big fuck you to all the fan base.
The other three are, like, high literature, Shakespeare, Charles Dickens compared to this.
Yeah, they overthought it, but at least they had thought. You know?
This overthinks it in a completely different direction to the point where it just feels lazy.
Yeah, and I think it thinks it's a lot smarter than it actually is as well.
Yeah, and I suppose so. That's that fourth script. Like I mentioned earlier, I found a fifth one, but the sheer stupidity of this Eibel and Berger one just completely pissed me off. That I didn't want to read another Freddy vs. Jason script.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
And from what I understand, the Mark Protosevich script is, there's apparently one scene with Jason in a bedroom that people think really captures Jason's twisted sense of morality or something, but that it's ultimately a Freddy movie where Jason is a minor character. Yes. Again.
It's very difficult to get that balance, and I think after reading these scripts, you have to at least give the movie that. They got the balance very well.
And, the movie really, it's not a great movie, but it feels like a goddamn masterpiece. It does.
It really does. It makes me appreciate it a lot more now.
It gets right that these all get wrong, is that even though it is Freddy and Jason together, it's a simple, down-to-earth slasher flick. It does exactly what it needs to do, and no more. It doesn't try and make it some big, there's an evil Freddy cult and rituals, or some weird,
it doesn't overthink it.
Meta thing with Jason, or the end of the world, or whatever the fuck that fourth one was. It's just a simple slasher movie, and that's all it needed to be. It got that much right, which it's like the writers they hired were the ones who just did not give a crap and just did whatever it's like they felt like they had to reinvent the wheel.
Well, that's what it felt a lot with the. I mean, apart from the last one, with the other three, it felt a lot like they had been given this very simple slasher film concept, but decided, I'm going to make it my Aliens or my whatever. This is going to be my magnum opus, and they just overthought it way too much.
My Alien 3.
Exactly. It's like they put way too much more effort into it than it needed, and it just ruined the entire thing.
I don't understand what was so hard about this concept. The hard part should have been getting the rights together, and that was already taken care of by this point.
It boggles the mind why this story in particular took this long and so many different drafts.
Counting the first time they tried to do it in '87, it took.
Yeah.
My math is leaving me at the moment. 13, 14 years, give or take.
Give or take.
13,
yeah.
Something like that. Okay, 87 plus 10 is 1997. 2003 is when it came out. Why the fuck do I suck at math so much? The script has rotted my brain.
Yeah.
16 years, that's it.
Holy crap.
16 years because they kept hiring dumbasses.
I don't understand it. I mean, all you have to do is watch the films and then make a film about the two of them in one. It's not that difficult. It's an incredibly simple concept, and for some reason, this was the hardest task ever.
I don't know.
It's bizarre.
I get that there's a slightly different tone between the two of them, and balancing the two characters is a problem, but it feels like they didn't even try to do that in either of these.
No, they didn't even attempt to get any kind of atmosphere. It either feels like a very bad, like the episode from the Freddy TV show.
I haven't seen the show. Do you mean the one where they did his origin story?
Yeah, that was the first episode, but it was like a clip show. Not a clip show, sorry. It was like Tales from the Crypt, which Freddy
he was like a crypt keeper. I know that, yeah.
Yeah, and it was that level of writing, that kind of TV, not much effort
look how many
writing.
TV writers they hired.
Yeah, I know. That's what it feels like. It feels like they didn't attempt to get any of the original atmosphere of the Friday films, because there was a lot of tension in those films. They weren't that it wasn't just explosions and blood and gore. There was atmosphere, at least I can say that. I mean, I'm not a fan, but the atmosphere was there. And with Friday the 13th as well, there's a lot of atmosphere as well as the wisecracks. As well as the blood, it's this atmosphere you have to get right. And none of the scripts did that, which is the biggest flaw of all of them.
It's almost like most of these were written with like a certain contempt for the franchise. It's like the whole meta thing in the Braga and Moore script just felt like they had so much contempt for Friday the 13th.
Yeah, it's basically, it felt a lot like, oh, I am so above
this. And this last one felt like it just had contempt for the whole slasher thing in general.
Yeah. Which basically is what Scream is if you take it to a ludicrous level. Scream is poking fun at the genre, whereas if you take it further, then it's just being, disdainful of the entire thing. So my
understanding of Scream 4 is...
Exactly, yeah. That's pretty much it, yeah.
So, yeah, I don't fucking know what to say. I don't know why this was so hard. But, that's Freddy vs. Jason, folks. This is probably... This last script was probably one of the worst scripts I've read for this show. Right up there with The Crow 2037, but I mean that one probably edges this one out in terms of just being terrible, because this actually had an identifiable structure to it. Fuck. So yeah, that was episode 10. I hope you enjoyed listening to our pain. Check out the show on Space Monkey Mafia. Check out the Facebook, Tumblr, and Twitter, which I will link below, and
you can check out me on YouTube as well, and Facebook as well, and all that.
Check out Deusdaecon. But also, I forgot to mention this like the last 2 episodes in a row, but I do have an email address specifically for this show, so I'm going to put that down below. You can email with any questions or comments, or any scripts you'd like to submit, or whatever. So yeah, check that out as well. So yeah, that was this piece of shit. Bye-bye.
Bye.